Gather around, freaks. The wheel made its decision, and you, the fans, chose the films. Nick Cage can't seem to leave the desert. He's left Nevada, entered Nevada, and now he's raising Arizona in Nevada. So gather around the internet radio and gather around the internet campfire, because it's time once again for Hey, did you see this one?
Behold, the odyssey of a chameleon of the silver screen, a sorcerer of chaos and introspection who weaves through genres with unmatched finesse. With fervor and unpredictability, this cinematic alchemist transforms scripts into gold, captivating audiences in thrillers and whimsical adventures alike. Join us as we watch a man shift from explosive action heroics to profound vulnerability, while he crafts a legacy that defies the ordinary, embarking on a mystical journey of artistic audacity and endless reinvention. Because this month, Hey, Did You See This One? Invites you to be trapped in a cage.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
What's up, all you cool cats and kittens? It's me, Claire, whatever her name was from The Tiger King. I did that joke in the future past as well, so we'll see how that works. Carol Baskin. Goddamn, Carol Baskin killed her husband. Sorry. Welcome to Hey, Did You See This One?
Goddamn gator. A gator. She shot his ass and fed him to a gator.
That's not bad, actually. That's pretty good.
I'm a homosexual man, and I get my husband's addicted to methamphetamine.
That's accurate. Thanks, Tiger King.
And never blink.
Yeah.
No. Welcome
know how to
the...
blink, don't have time to blink. I will never financially recover from this.
Welcome, Jesus Christ. Well,
I've never done that impression before. It's not that bad.
You threw me fully off my train of thought. Welcome to the weekly reaction review roundtable discussion and deep dive on all the movies that we have to ask. Hey, did you see this one? It is episode 160.
Wow,
that's fucked up. Welcome. And if you're playing at home, it's season 3, episode 11. We're gonna be popping over to the new year here real quick. But before we do that, we have the rest of Nicolas Cage month, and then a very special month coming up in December where the guests pick their movies, and we'll see. You'll all see. Welcome back to the show once again, making his 9,000th appearance. It's Timming, Arizona. Tim Covey returns to the show. Welcome back to the show, Tim. Welcome back to the show. And here's a picture of...
Give me what I want.
Here's a picture of Mark Twain.
Mark Twain. Cauliflower brains. I'll never forget that joke.
Yeah.
Dirt brains.
Thank you, Tim, for coming back to the show. It's been a minute since you were here. We had you scheduled for Halloween month, but plans happen and things get away from you, and you're here to talk about Raising Arizona, starring Nicolas Cage. We spun a wheel, we made a deal, we took 55 movies, we narrowed it down to 16 with that, and then we asked the people of the internet to vote for their favorite movies. I'm going to let everybody know that the semifinals are now happening. We put Leaving Las Vegas up against Con Air. Con Air won 17-12. Unsurprisingly, I was closer than I thought I was going to be, though. So,
you know what, though? I didn't hate it. I've seen it, but I was like, I think I've outgrown this shit, right? But then I watched it. I was like, this is fun, though.
Con Air?
Yeah, and it was a fun episode. So.
Entertaining, yeah.
I see why everybody loves Con Air after watching it as a nearly 40-year-old, too. Leaving Las Vegas was not fun. It was depressing, and we were all sad after it was over. But next week, I'm going to put up race. Yes. I'm going to put up Raising Arizona up against our final movie, Valley Girl, and then the following week I'll put up the very finals. And we'll find out who the ultimate victor for Trapped in a Cage Nic-Vember month is. With that, though, Tim, I can't remember if you've done this yet. If you haven't been here, oh no, because we were here for Zardos, but we hadn't. Zardos hadn't been on the show yet, but you did do a brief synopsis, did you?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Zardos, ask us a question, please.
Zardos
hello.
Speaks to you. He demands you synopsize this film. Tell him how, why, who, what occurs in this film.
We should make a little movie for that.
That's a pretty good picture of my face you drew there.
Yeah, right. Me too. Also me. It's both of us. Tim, why don't you give us a brief synopsis of the film Raising Arizona?
Okay. So our dear friend Cage the Rage, Nick Cage, he plays Hy McDonough, who is a repeating convenience store robber that ends up falling in love with a police officer played by Holly Hunter named Edwina, or Ed for short. And she's the police officer that routinely has to do his mugshot and check his prints each time. And each time he sees her, he's falling more in love with her. And eventually he makes his move and they get married and start building a happy life together. But they decide after wanting to start having children that they physically can't. And because of his criminal record, they cannot adopt. And that's when they realize that in the news, the Arizona quintuplets have been born, and they plot to steal a baby for their own. And then the story goes from there. Yeah. So, but I don't want to give away the ending just yet. We have to talk more about that. But more or less, I think that's the general idea of the story.
Perfect. I believe
I would agree.
that is acceptable. Zardos accepts this synopsis.
Thank you, Master.
Thank you, Master.
We have one rifle.
Like a gumball machine.
No bullets, though. I'm all out of bullets.
Acceptable does not get you bullets. And but also this is the second major film by the Coen Brothers. So it's a lot of raw talent on the go here between Nicolas Cage and the Coen Brothers.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to say about those boyos once we get to the director talk segment. But let's talk about our brief history.
A brief history.
As you all know, here on Hey Did You See This One, the guest always goes first. So, Tim, keeping with tradition, of course, why don't you give us your brief history with the film?
Well, who am I to stand in the way of tradition? So my brief history of the film is I saw it once in my 20s and kind of forgot about it. And it was overshadowed by a lot of other Nicolas Cage movies and other Coen Brother movies for me. But watching it So it kind of fell between the cracks. And then when Nicolas Cage month came up and you guys were generous enough to ask me to come back, that was when it was reintroduced to me. And I've kind of developed a new appreciation for all of it in general. And it has been an interesting revisiting for it. And that's a very brief history for me this time. Usually I go on forever.
Same. And by same, I mean I have the same almost exact brief history as you. When I was in school, movie school, it was around the time that No Country for Old Men came out, and I saw that and was like, I'm aware of the Coen Brothers. I know what Fargo is. So then I went on a search to find all. And it was a little harder back then to find movies. If you went to Blockbuster and it wasn't there, you were kind of shit out of luck. You could try and find it on the internet, and you could spend 4 days downloading it or whatever.
Yeah,
but
LimeWire.
Yeah. So I was able to find this one and a bunch of the other ones. But yeah, I haven't really watched it since, and I don't think that I really appreciated it for what it is, especially considering so many parallels with other movies that I absolutely loved at the time. You would think that I would have a more fleshed out appreciation, but I didn't really. I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. This one's all right. It's funny. Like I think it's funny, but even the humor in it wasn't hitting as hard as it did this time around. Like I was gut chuckling throughout this movie at the dumbest stuff because it's so silly, but it's like a fine-tuned watch or something. Like all the jokes are like crafted perfectly for this situation and the scenario. And considering it's like I guess it would be a sophomore movie, right? Like it's the second film of the Coen Brothers, and usually a lot of filmmakers, they'll come out with a banger and then they'll dip on their second one and then maybe have a resurgence afterwards. But I would argue that this is a more competent and more entertaining and maybe just overall better movie than Blood Simple, but that's debatable. I do like that movie as well, but I think that this movie has a resonance and it still works today. There's nothing about this movie that makes it feel dated, really. Even like the Yoda pajamas joke is still relevant now, except now it's Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda pajamas.
It's got Baby Yodas on it or some shit. I was, when we got this one, I was intrigued to revisit it because it's been so long. But I was happy that it won in its battle because it has been so long, and it's one of the only ones that we did this month that I have seen. The other ones I'm like, oh wow, I've seen 50 out of the 55 we've submitted, and we rolled in 5 ones that I've not seen. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, yeah, that's my brief history.
I mean, I'm with you guys. Going into this movie, I sort of didn't know what to expect. I had an idea of what it was, but I didn't realize that it was a straight up comedy with heart, which is kind of what it is. It's kind of like a lot of the other Coen Brothers stuff when you really get into it, but without really recognizing that it is that before you go into it, you just see them sitting with the baby. And I like a lot of sitcoms from the early 2000s are evoked when I think of this. The setting of Arizona reminds me of that one with the guy from Breaker High, where they also are like criminals who raise a baby. I fucking can't remember. I thought there was a Raising Hope sitcom, and I've talked about this on the show before. Yeah, but there isn't. But basically, I watched it yesterday, and I really I was blown away by how, like Steve was saying, like how genuinely intelligently funny it is. Like for being like kind of a goofy comedy by, compared to a lot of like comedies during this time weren't this like over the top. Really, they were. Anyway, I looked up the show. The show is called Sons of Tucson. It has basically the same premise as this.
You sound like you're underwater, Jason.
Did you?
A little.
It's getting worse. It sounds like you're going further and further underwater.
Don't go to the Titanic, no matter what the billionaires say.
This is the sound of my voice when I'm
there you go.
talking.
There you go.
Might have just been.
Was that whole time I said it underwater?
No, we can
No,
understand.
just kind of tapered a little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
cool.
understood
Anyways,
everything you said. It just started to slowly sound like your room was filling with water. Mr. Bond.
Sons of Tucson was basically three young brothers hire a charming wayward schemer to stand in as their father when their real one goes to prison. So it's not even like really the same. It's just a criminal raises these three boys.
Oh,
It's like a
I thought you were
in
gonna
the
be
middle.
like, maybe it was just one episode where they steal a baby.
No,
And
he
then the
basically
episode's called Raising Arizona. Oh.
could be. What's that movie with Justin Long where no,
Galaxy
one where they have the school
Die
unschooled.
for. I don't know. I'm actually pretty bad with my Justin Long movies.
I mean,
Was
we
it
did just do
Undeclared?
before. Undeclared, isn't that a TV show?
Oh yeah. Where like Louis Black, they
Louis
hired
Black
him
is
to
in it.
play the dean and all that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is that's what I thought this was. I thought it was more along the lines of that. But then it was like a sweet comedy about these rednecks who like steal a baby because they can't have kids. And that's basically my brief
I mean, that's the
history.
beauty of a Coen brother movie, especially a Coen brother comedy, is that if you have expectations and you don't know what it's going to be and you expect it to be like any other movie you've ever seen, you're fucking wrong. It's going to be like nothing you've ever seen. And you're like, what is this? This is such a curiosity.
I feel like John Goodman's character ends up being his character in The Big Lebowski. Like this version of him just becomes, he gets out of prison, goes off to war or whatever, comes back, he's all pissed off. You know?
Yeah, he's always, for the Coen Brother movies that he's been in, he's always been like not even just physically, but a larger than life.
He's always yelling so much.
and has this like impulse control problem very often with his characters. Yeah.
I would say that his character in The Big Lebowski is much smarter than this character, but smarter in a different way. He's also dumb, but he's dumb in a different way. You know, he's not like a goon.
But go ahead.
I was just gonna say I didn't really have anything. I usually prepare my like brief history, but what I always link it back to, honestly, is like these older 80s movies that are like this, like Coen Brothers movies and Tarantino and stuff. And even like the weird ones that you like feel like you saw in a fever dream, they were always on Showcase. And this movie, like I've just never seen accidentally, which is weird because of how aware of the movie I've always been.
Yeah.
I think ultimately. What were you going to say, Tim? Sorry.
I kind of forget, so don't worry.
Must have been a lie, as my wife would say. Well, with that said, why don't we go into director talk? Let's talk about the fucking director.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed. Action!
I have a question.
All right.
For the both of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this from this movie and looking at the Coen Brothers sort of IMDb's. How come Ethan Coen is uncredited on like so many of the early movies?
I think it has to do with Directors Guild stuff that because like they kind of ran into this problem with Sin City because that technically has 3 directors anyway, even though it's kind of all under one in a fashion. And all these kinds of things have run into problems before. Even for George Lucas for Star Wars, got kicked out of the Directors Guild. That's why he had to bring in Irving Kershner and what's his name, Marquand for Return of the Jedi. So I think in order to kind of stay with the studios and not cause too much trouble, they have to designate to a point who's going to be the lead director.
Yeah, it's really weird, but yeah, it probably also has something to do with salaries and stuff like that as well, right? Like where the director is going to get paid a certain amount of money, and if you credit both of them, then there's probably some sort of weird negotiation that has to go on with the distribution or the studio that's filming it.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure, but I think Tim, you're probably accurate, where it's just like it's just easier to have one director.
Mhm.
But they've always said like, no, the both of us write and direct all these movies. It's just we
Yeah.
have to. We have to pick
It's
one.
actually interesting. I didn't realize right up until I don't know Intolerable Cruelty, but right up till Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which includes The Big Lebowski and Fargo and The Hudsucker Proxy and Barton Fink, he's uncredited on all of those, and those are all classic like Coen Brothers movies, right? So
Yeah.
I just thought that was an interesting thing that I noticed. It's credited as Joel Coen, written and directed. However, it is the both of them, obviously. And if you don't know the Coen Brothers body of work, every time they put up a new movie, it's celebrated. It's an event.
Mhm.
There are these auteur
I feel like
directors
it's
who make these
impossible for you
really
to not know who the Coen Brothers are.
Yeah.
Very weird.
especially.
I feel like
Yeah,
it
like,
would
they're
be
always-
harder to find somebody who hasn't heard of the Coen Brothers than somebody who has.
Yeah. And a long reputation of just like whether you like it or hate it, it's a well-crafted movie.
Yeah.
That like no matter what you're looking at quality, even if it's not to your taste.
And I've said a million times on this show that like I didn't watch a lot of movies before 2020, and I've seen like most of the Coen Brothers stuff. It's just that one of those directors, like a Tarantino, their style reminds me of Tarantino. If Tarantino made like funny dramas that are weird. Sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to cut you off there, buddy.
It's okay. My point was just going to be there's a couple that they've made throughout their career that you can tell they would write a project for somebody else to direct, and then they would be like, I guess we can do it, but it's not as finely tuned and well crafted as some of the other ones, I think The Hudsucker Proxy is one of those.
Okay.
I have like a hard time even remembering that movie. But yeah, there's a couple along the way up until what we know of them now, which is pretty much every single movie that comes out is a meticulously fine-tuned, and like the recipe has been perfected, and now they're just adding spices along the way to try and figure out, like, how can I make this more interesting, or how can I make this chili in a way that no one's ever had chili before? And I think they are pretty successful almost every time.
Yeah, I would almost, in a weird comparison, give it to like Nintendo Polish, where they have such a fully realized concept most of the time for Nintendo on the go that by the time it's like filming, and like famously for this movie, and we'll talk more about it as we talk about the movie itself and the body, but that like you have somebody like Nicolas Cage who does have such a firm approach to how he performs in movies that he's bringing a lot of his own ideas to it, whereas for them, their ideas are already so fully realized that they really know, like, you're going to do it this way. We've already paved the road. You just kind of have to walk it. And so, so it comes a point when it's so fully realized before they've even started practical shooting. When it comes time for editing and all that stuff, they really pepper in the good stuff when it comes to that, even just color timing in this movie alone. Like you feel it very seamless throughout. That's probably a part of visually why it's all very easy to sit and watch, because nothing feels jarring or out of place. And you can even feel that in like Disney movies nowadays, where the color timing is bizarrely off for some reason.
Yeah, and I think that's also
really
it still feels so fresh, is that the color sort of temperature that they've gone for in this movie feels closer to a modern movie than anything that was happening at that time. And the same to be said for the camera movement. This movie was one of those things that like people would see it and be like, I've never seen a movie filmed this way before. And they adopted a lot of techniques that Sam Raimi used in the Evil Dead movies, which, Sam Raimi and the Coen brothers went to film school together. So they grew up together and they're good friends.
Yeah. Very close relationship.
It makes a lot of sense that they would be like, Sam, how did you do that shit? the demon going through the woods. How did you do that? We want to do that for a dream sequence. Can we do it? Tell us how.
And a kind of almost parallel for director talk, Barry Sonnenfeld was the director of cinematography for this movie, and he later on did movies like the Men in Black series and whatnot. And his movies also have, I would say, like an acute look to them as well. That there is a lot of detail to take in without being overbearing. So it kind of makes sense that he would put his feet in the cement working with the Coen brothers for these kind of projects.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that, like, you know, again, this is their second movie, and their first movie was a very heavy crime noir movie.
Oh yeah,
and it would have been very easy for them to just fall into that world and be like, we're just going to do this over and over. And they've made a couple more along their filmography. But
No Country for Old Men is not really like the rest of their stuff.
They've been able to take that genre and tell different stories within it, and then also kind of blend genres together. So No Country for Old Men is a crime movie, but it's not a noir. It's sort of a dusty Western set in a modern time. I mean, a more modern time. It doesn't really feel of the era that it came out in. It almost feels like it could take place in any time period, really.
Yeah.
Except for like little bullet trackers and cell phones and stuff.
And that movie isn't like funny. It's not haha funny, but it's quirky even in its like westerniness, you know, like it's still got that punchy. Like Fargo is another one that's like funny in like a quirky, like
I'd say that Fargo is genuinely funny, whereas No Country for Old Men, I don't know what is funny in that movie to you. That movie freaks me out.
I think the main villain to me is like an interesting like superhero villain, which which is a weird offset to these like Tommy Lee Jones and what Thanos.
Sorry, super villain. Yeah. You know. Well, I don't know if the two of you would agree with this. I was actually thinking about this while watching the movie, and kind of, you know, not to distance too far from Nicolas Cage, but given it's the theme month, but the Coen brothers, I find they kind of make contemporary modern day folklore. That there's a and it's like this mixture of what seems to be random ingredients converging, and then there's and same with Raising Arizona. There's this nigh supernatural element added in. You can say the same in a way for No Country for Old Men, where the serial murderer in that, like there's an almost unearthly evil to this person. Kind of same goes for the bounty hunter in this movie, where Nicolas Cage his character has a premonition of him, and those kind of ingredients come up on a regular basis. And like even The Big Lebowski, that movie is just about a series of circumstances, and like it's more just, isn't it wild that all of this seemed to happen in such a short period of time? And it makes for a good campfire story.
That's what they all feel like to me, though, is like somebody else telling you a story in a grandiose way. So even mundane things within the tale is visually magical, even if it's something desolate like Fargo, like the long stretches of white in this sort of like winter landscape. It feels extra isolated, even though it's just 2 points between two cities. You might as well be in the Arctic or something, you know. It feels like a mystical land. So I think Campfire Story is very astute, because that's what it feels like. Somebody is telling you a story, like, gather around and let me tell you the tale of Fargo. It was crazy. But that can be said about pretty much every single one of their movies, even like Burn After Reading, or
I love Burn After Reading.
Even True Grit. Like they all feel, they feel like magical stories. They feel like fairy tales, even though most of them are grounded in reality, just visually and the way people speak. Like even in this movie, the bounty hunter is most definitely implied to be supernatural. It's almost as though Nicolas Cage conjured him from a dream. You know, when he's and I know a lot of that stuff he's dreaming about him, but like at the end of the movie, when he gets shot in the hand, his hand bursts into flames. Like this guy's literally a demon. It's great, and like every single sound effect that accompanies him is an animal. Like there's never any normal sound effects. You know, when he breathes heavily, it's like a boar sound effect. When he screams, it's a lion.
Well, get ready later on for that Theories song, because I do have something to say. That one for later, because I do have a little bit to say about that. It might be a tad far-fetched, especially for me, but anyway. And to see this in such a kind of incubating stage, in a manner of speaking, for the Coen brothers, and not to kind of blow too much smoke up their asses, like they're just humans like the rest of us, but
They're just better than us.
But there's always something about seeing creative people with such fully realized or fully activated talent and vision that it makes you think this is serendipitous, that this was meant to be. And these people were meant to be creative people, and to put them in a factory line would be a shame. Yeah. So yeah, like it's great that they're doing what they're doing.
Do you guys have a favorite Coen Brothers movie before we move into?
That's things? So funny that you're asking that, because I was literally like 10 minutes ago going to ask that question. I think for me it's going to be The Big Lebowski. But shout out to The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, because it is like an anthology thing, but I fucking have watched that a couple times, and I very much enjoy that.
For me, the one I've seen the most is The Big Lebowski. The one I've come to appreciate a lot is Burn After Reading. The fact that like it's all edited and presented to be a spy thriller, but it absolutely is not. The content of it is not a spy thriller. It's just middle-aged people screwing things up as they go through their midlife crisis. And I find that to be absolutely brilliant. And I howled in the theater when George Clooney storms out of the house carrying his sex pillow. I thought that was absolutely wonderful. But yeah, the one I've seen the most is Big Lebowski. The most quotable for me is Big Lebowski. So I would say by default would be that. But they all have those special moments. Even for like The Man Who Wasn't There, that's also like a great one with what's his name? The guy who was married to Angelina Jolie back in the day. Doesn't matter though.
I almost said John Voight. I was like, that's not right.
That's her dad.
But who knows what goes behind closed doors of that family? But anyway.
Yeah, well, that's not just like your opinion, man.
Perfect.
Sorry, can I get another one of those, please?
Maybe later.
Jeff Daniels-a-thon.
Jeff Bridges, you mean?
Jeff Bridges-a-thon? No, I wanted Jeff Daniels' impression, actually.
Hi, this is Jeff Daniels.
Bullseye.
Dumb and Dumber, man.
I've seen The Big Lebowski the most as well, I think, and it's just because a lot of the people that I grew up with were, stonery people, so like they're watching it for a very specific reason. Where I enjoy it. It's a great movie, and I've seen it a lot. But I think I'm gonna go with Fargo, because Fargo is one that every time I put it on, I watch it from beginning to end. Whereas I can't say the same about all of their others. But No Country for Old Men is the one that really made me be like, I should pay more attention to these directors, because they are important people in terms of film and the evolution of film and the inspiration that film can have on people.
And storytelling in general, yeah.
Yeah, that movie is crazy. Like it's wild. But Fargo, yeah. There's just something about Fargo where there's a really good balance of shitty people and great people within the movie. Like super likable people versus despicable people that you despise, and then one particular person that you feel really bad for, but you kind of despise him because he's doing despicable stuff along the way. Yeah. Fargo for me.
Excellent. Should we get into the body of the episode?
The body
of the episode.
Well, we've made it. We've talked about all of the various variables. Okay. Bars. And now we're going to talk about... I don't know why, but Spider-Man, when you play Spider-Man at me, it makes me mad. I don't know. I'm being spun. Listen, it's the body of the episode where I'm going to break down the movie bit by bit, and we're going to talk about every single element of it. And this is the part of the movie that is the podcast. So welcome, buckle up and sit down and get yourself a beer and a coffee and a water.
Beer and a coffee.
Smoke a joint. Put on your favorite Zelda game that you need to grind out rupees in, because we're gonna talk it all down until we get through it. And I'm just gonna open this up. Oh, Wait, what was that? Oh. That's right. The first note that I wrote was, "Hi McDonough, call me Hi. So young, John Goodman." But let me set the scene for you. Wait, what the fuck? What the fuck?
What was that note? Hi McDonough, John Goodman. He's so young. What was that note?
It was just stream of
a
consciousness.
stroke. Okay,
Listen, people out here stroking all over the place.
oh my God. What did
Okay.
you say? Oh.
Recidivist. Recidivist criminal H.I. McDonough, played by Nicolas Cage, repeatedly gets arrested for petty crimes, mainly robbing convenience stores. Fun fact, the opening montage is famous for its quick edits and humorous narration by Cage, establishing the Coen Brothers' signature style of dark humor. That's not really a fun fact, ChatGPT. That's just what it is.
It's also known for its notoriously long prologue. Like, it's the longest cold open to ever exist.
We did a movie.
Yeah.
What would be a first act in a regular movie is basically just smushed into 20 minutes of Nicolas Cage talking the whole time. And
then him like getting out on parole and then going right back into prison. There was a movie we did recently that had the same thing where there's like a whole first act and then it says the name of the movie. I can't remember what it was. Was it one of the horror movies we did? Anyway, doesn't matter. Hey, can you hit me with a little title drop there? That's when
they said the name of the movie in the movie.
So I'll just get this out of the way. They don't actually say look at the camera raising Arizona, but they say Arizona a bunch of times in this movie, which I think is close enough. And at 2 minutes and 50 seconds, shut up. They say it. I really like that sting, and we didn't get to use it for the last couple episodes because nobody was like, "I'm leaving Las Vegas. I need to get out of Las Vegas. I need to get out of Las Vegas
in a body bag."
Yeah, but
a body bag.
The first note I want to ask you guys about was: did you notice how they never explicitly say they're in like Tucson? They're in some like shitty podunk area in Arizona. Are there 8 people in this prison?
Well,
it's a large prison, so I don't think so.
I would say it's got like a strong focus, and the fact that like it's the same guy mopping the floor each time, it's really hinting at the repeat bad behavior of it, that like he's just going to see the same people over again. He's going to see the same people at the counseling circle, and to the point where it doesn't matter. You don't need to see the whole cell block filled with everybody.
Yeah, it's also a low budget movie, so
yeah,
you can tell that the movie was spending its budget wisely. You know,
I get all that, but I almost feel like it's an in joke that they're in such a small place that this giant prison only has a few inmates. I get what you guys are saying. I get that like you can't populate a whole prison because that costs money. But I almost felt like it very much felt like there's that scene where he walks by the guy mopping and all the cells are just empty. I just thought that they did that. They could have just had like a smaller prison and shot at a smaller prison, but I felt like they purposely filmed in a giant looking prison and only had a few inmates just to show you how small scale and in such a small town they are.
Yeah.
That's all.
The movie in general has a stark quality to it. Where even the scene with the most extras in it, they're face down on the ground. So like you don't even really see anybody outside of the main characters.
I thought that it added to that storybook feel that we were talking about before, where it's like, we're not going to populate the movie with characters that don't matter because they don't matter. The only thing that we're ever going to show you is something that is there specifically and purposefully. But the prison can't be that empty because he has a cellmate. If it was empty, they would give him his own cell, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Or maybe that guy just really he just really likes that guy. So he's like, no, just put me in the same one I was in last time. I like that guy, the guy who eats sand when he tells me.
This is 2 movies in a row that we've seen Nic Cage also just lying in a bed in a cell like this.
Oh, right.
That was the first line that actually cracked me up to the point that the person I was watching it with us was like, what? Why is that so funny? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's so fucking funny. And the cellmate is like, we eat crawfish, and if we don't have crawfish, we eat crawdaddies, and if we don't have crawdaddies, we eat sand. And he's like, what? And he's like, we eat sand. He's like, you eat sand?
Yeah, like there's nothing else before sand you can eat.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta get the crawdads.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny too, because they're in the desert. So this guy clearly got.
What is a crawdaddy? I don't know what it is.
It's
like
crawfish.
a
Crawfish.
Crawfish. Okay.
Known specifically from gumbo, when you make a gumbo in Louisiana.
Is it like a big crawfish, like a bigger crawfish, or is it like?
No, it's like you take a lobster that you would see at the restaurant and just maybe 1/8 the size. Like we have crawfish in Canada too. I've seen it in the Humber River.
Like
I know what a
just
crawfish is. I just didn't know what a crawdaddy was.
Oh, okay.
It's just a name for a crawfish. That guy is definitely from Louisiana.
Yeah, but there is. I mean, do they even mention too much that they're physically in Arizona? Because I mean, the other time they mention Arizona is just the Arizona quintuplets, but they're only named that after the dad. So
he changed his name to that because he didn't want to be named like Hufffunkel or whatever his name is. You're gonna buy an unpainted Hufffunkel.
It's a pretty good point, but I mean, it looks like Nevada. There's
Oh yeah, well it's
desert.
It's very very stark, arid, southwestern United States.
But to answer your question, I don't think they ever explicitly say they're in Arizona. The whole crux of the joke is that they're raising a baby from the Arizona family.
Yeah, and I think that to respond to it, it doesn't matter, right? The beginning of this movie is more or less once upon a time in a land far away or whatever.
Yeah, in a convenience store far, far away.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. It would be the same story no matter where it was set. It's just the accents in the desert landscape are giving you an idea, and the title are kind of creating that for you. But it helps because you can place it wherever you want it to be in your mind. And to me, these guys live in a Looney Tunes world, basically. Like the coyote and the roadrunner are in their backyard chasing each other around. Like they're just
which kind of leads into the one truly deep Nicolas Cage inclusion into this. That what made him fall in love with this script was the fact that it did seem Looney Tunes and zany, over the top, and that's where the whole roadrunner thing started coming in. That was actually his idea, to have the Roadrunner tattoo. Or no, sorry, he implied the Roadrunner thing, and then Ethan Coen inputted the Roadrunner tattoo as a thing, and to almost how cartoons would have.
Woody Woodpecker.
Or sorry, yeah, what did I say? It doesn't matter. Woody Woodpecker, absolutely right.
Roadrunner. Yeah, no, I know what you meant though.
I beg your pardon, but yeah, Woody Woodpecker, but would intentionally have High's hair get crazier and crazier the more stressed out he is, so that he's visibly showing in a cartoonish sense what's kind of going on emotionally with the character.
Yeah.
Do you know what's crazy about Nic Cage's performance in this? This is only 10
one of his best performances in his entire career. I agree.
That's not crazy. I believe that, but this is only 10 years later. He's in Con Air, and he looks like a different person.
Well, his widow's peak is at full peak by Con Air, I think.
Yeah.
But
I think Con Air, he's wearing a wig at that point. Because you see Leaving Las Vegas, and he's got not a lot left already at that point.
He's got that classic Nic Cage look in Leaving Las Vegas, which is right smack dab in the middle.
Well, even in this movie, it kind of looks like a haystack. But I think also, just as age goes on, he kind of developed different physically, and for him, it's always translated into his performances how physically he puts himself into it. So I think with this one, there's almost so I don't know if this would make any sense, but another person that could possibly play this role outside of Nicolas Cage would be maybe Jim Carrey from that time, to have that kind of flexibility.
Especially that the scene where he's stealing the baby, like you could really picture Jim Carrey doing like a full The Mask performance where he's like like sneaking around the house or whatever. He was even sort of doing that a little bit, like no walk.
That whole sequence is basically like Evil Dead, but with babies.
Yeah, and he's just got this crazy look on his face the whole time, like. Then when he goes out and he's like, they started crying and then they were all over me. It was really kind of terrifying. Can you open the door, please? This is amazing.
But
his accent in Con Air is also a Southern accent. It's a different type of Southern accent, but he's pulling it off really well in this movie. Whereas in Con Air, it is dog shit, like terrible, terrible accent.
I would attribute that to the Coen Brothers because for all the characters, they wrote them. And there was a couple of interviews where they were saying that they intentionally wrote these characters as if they learned how to speak from reading magazines at the time and the Bible, and so they kept that to inform how to write everybody. And you do hear like half Bible verse, half remembered, and given kind of a bit of a twangy feel to it. Throughout the movie, especially from Nicolas Cage. So I think that might be an influence in a sense, as far as that difference in his choice of a Southern accent. Yeah, it's not quite Ozarkian. It is more more Western.
It's that desert, that Nevada. If you've ever been to like Las Vegas, like or Arizona, that's how people are down there. Like the locals, they've got sort of we talk like this. I think he's doing a Carolinas accent in Con Air, which is a little bit different. I'm not a dialect coach, obviously. I wanted to just say that Holly Hunter is fucking fantastic in this movie, and I kind of forgot that she had been around for so long. I always kind of my mind, I always kind of see her as like a lawyer. I don't know where that's from. I'm looking at her IMDb.
Super stretchy superhero.
Yeah, she is Elastigirl. I've only really seen her in 13, the movie about 13-year-olds from the early 2000s. You've
definitely seen like Batman versus Superman, have you not?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Okay, but she's not really like, she's just like the senator in that.
Yeah,
she drinks a jar of piss.
Oh, you know where I
cool movie, guys.
You know where I know her from mostly, I'm realizing, is she's in Succession. And when I was watching Succession, I was like, where do I know this person from? That might be why I've got her as lawyer brain, even though she's like just like somebody that works in at John Succession.
She's a journeyman actor. She's been around since the 80s.
She's been around since the 80s.
Still around to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought she did an excellent job. Some of her facial expressions are like so funny in this, and she kind of matches Nick Cage's freak, if you will. It's 2024. That's a saying that the kids say nowadays.
Oh, do they say that still?
Match your freak? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe we're through. Maybe that was 2 years ago.
Retired that jersey. Yeah, they put it
up. So HI meets Ed through all of this, as I think Tim mentioned. They kind of have a bit of a love story just through their interactions. They have good charisma, and during his frequent bookings, HI basically he realizes he wants to settle down and stop doing all of this, and the two form an unlikely romance. And I do have a fun fact that is a fun fact. Cage and Hunter both loved the script and reportedly didn't need much direction to bring the characters' quirks to life, because they're both, like Steve said, journeyman actors who are very good at their craft. Even early on here, you can see that they would become.
Yeah, I think there was some contention with Cage throughout, though, because, like you were saying, Tim, he went in with all these ideas and he wanted to do improvisation, but the Coen brothers were like, no.
He described their approach as autocratic.
Yeah, but he also, I think, said that it led to a little bit of tension on set, but then afterwards he was grateful for the experience because he realized that people do appreciate me for that ability, but if I go into a project where somebody isn't bringing me in for that ability, but for my performance, then I need to be able to. I
Yeah.
need to be able to take the direction that they're giving me.
Mhm.
And so it's nice that he doesn't like hold grudges or anything, but they've never worked together since, so maybe they do. Who knows?
They can be a little specific for their corral of actors, but there's something to be said about to kind of go quickly about that idea of somebody who has a lot of talent can tend to have a big ego. If they've gotten like a lot of accolades for their success, and they kind of get insulated from either criticism or advice, and it might be good advice, and so to be able to have someone that either has enough talent or ego or both enough where they can see it and respect it enough that when this person has something to say, I should pay attention. I may not agree with it, but it's not for nothing that they're saying this.
Yeah. We've talked about the 5 scripts that Cage read that he it's kind of presented like he's only read these 5 scripts, but it's more so 5 scripts that he read and took immediately. This is on that list. We've been kind of quoting it, but I just found the actual quote. The 5 movies are Vampire's Kiss, Leaving Las Vegas, Raising Arizona, Adaptation, and this was all while he was promoting Dream Scenario. So I don't know if it's just because he was promoting Dream Scenario, but I am interested in watching that film because
You said Renfield was on the list last time.
I did. See, I lied.
Yeah. Maybe
I thought he was on
Vampire's Kiss with Renfield. There is a
It's
vampire.
true. I thought that he was I thought he was on the press junket for Renfield, but it was for Dream Scenario.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Well, you always give me a hard time for it, but sometimes old raising Jason R. Phillips just says things.
Raising Jason,
as they like to call me back in the prison days.
Back in the prison days, they called you Raisin Jason.
Uh-oh.
But don't be called Raisin Jason, like California Raisin Jason.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to look like in 10 years at my current rate of substance abuse. Yep, thanks, Spider-Man. Snick, bub. Nope, that's Wolverine. Anyway, he gets
Raisin Jason.
He marries Edwina, aka Ed. They get the the double wide trailer and
the idea of sort of like an unlikely love blooming because she sees how sweet he is when she call him a fiance? My fiance left me.
My fiance. Well, he slides that little ring on her, which is kind of like a promise ring.
Well, that's the next time. She's crying because of that, and he's like, "You tell him that he's a no good, sorry sack of shit, and he knows where to find me." And he like gives the exact address and cell of the prison.
That kind of polar opposites attracting one another. There's also that kind of introduces a somewhat theme in this movie where people breaking their patterns end up ushering in good change in their life, and like him seeing this person that he admires, that like you figure as a convict he would have some kind of bias towards police officers, but for her there's something that draws him out of his cycle of robberies, and introduces him to a good life that as he called it, the salad days, where like that, like for him, that alone was already like a step into a kind of paradise for him. That even though he was working that job, there's an interesting little reference. I don't know if you guys noticed this when you see him working that steel mill job, and that guy's constantly yapping to him. Sorry, Sammy, it's in the way. The jumpsuits that they're all wearing, they say Hudsucker Industries on them. Meanwhile, this movie is like 4 years before Hudsucker Proxy came out. That's because Sam Raimi and the Coen Brothers were already writing Hudsucker Proxy at the time. Right. But anyway, maybe coincidence, I don't know, but it's interesting that it's there. Anyway, but yeah, like
It's in the same universe. Theory alert.
theory alert.
I mean, it's not even really a theory. It's like it's a fact. It's like that's what
It's there.
Yeah,
it's in the movie.
A lot of writers will do that, and like Tarantino, for example, he'll have like a brand of cigarette that is canonical throughout all of his movies. And
oh yeah, well, like the Vega brothers and everything too, right?
Yeah, the Askew-universe with Kevin Smith.
But there's this kind of repeat thing of people that are doing bad things, and then they encounter this element of good that as an element of change, and it breaks that pattern, and they all of a sudden become better people, like not perfect people, but better people.
Yeah, and the movie does a really good job of like showing you right out of the gate, even though he's the narrator, and obviously everybody has their own biases to their own lives, but even just the other characters being like, well, you never had no bullets in your guns. And he's like, oh, I didn't want to hurt anybody. Just like, okay, so he's not a bad guy. He just has a weird issue with robbing people.
He also says later on in the movie too that like if there's no bullets in the gun, then it's not armed robbery, which is like incorrect. But you can see his line of logic.
Yeah.
You can see that he thinks that if he's just brandishes a gun with no bullets in it, then he's fine. And maybe that's part of the laws that allow him to just get back out after what 18 months every time. Like we see a weird passage of time. It's implied kind of that we see him go to jail like 3 times. Does he go to jail for a year every time?
Something like that. It must be like, so when you consider it that like it's something like approaching 3-4 years that he's doing this, if it's 18 months at a time.
But still, it's got that storybook element. It's kind of a cartoon in a lot of ways. We reached the point that, I want to talk about just for a brief moment. What my favorite scene of him repeatedly going to jail is when he robs the convenience store and runs out, and he's locked his keys in the car. Basically, he locks himself out of the car and then just runs off into the darkness.
Yeah,
that was fantastic. Do you guys have a favorite robbery?
Probably the one where he is stealing the hoagies.
Yeah, that's I would say that too. Only because it's so fleshed out. But his running throughout the whole movie, his running has like this like high need pace to it, but it's also like jetting out to the sides, where like it's so overly exaggerated, but it does look like, well, this is the way this person has to run. Like this is the way he actually does run.
Yeah, and the way everybody runs in this movie is overly animated. Like later on when he assaults his boss or whatever, and his boss gets up and he's like, I'm just trying to help you, you're fucking crazy. And he's like running like Steven Seagal, like Steven Seagal run.
Dear God, no, I would be afraid to.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I've only seen him get into a knife fight with Tommy Lee Jones.
All right, you guys talk for a second. I gotta find it.
So I'm also looking for a thing that he reminds me of. I'm going to see if this will load. But so there's a video game called Final Fantasy. Just kidding. There's a video game called Mother 3, which is the sequel to Earthbound. And he very much reminds me, because that game is set in sort of a deserty place when it starts. And you meet this character named Duster. And this is what Duster looks like. That kind of reminds me of H.I. McDonough a little bit. What about you, Steve? What about me? What were you cooking up there?
I'm looking. Hold on.
You're still cooking?
I have it. I'm just trying to figure out how to share them. Here we go.
Oh, you're doing a clip it up. Oh
right.
no!
I can't believe you've never seen this, but
I like that it's called Steven Seagal Runs Weird.
This is my favorite YouTube video. It's called Steven Seagal Runs Weird, and now we watch it. He does. He runs so weird. It's like he's grabbing onto stuff and pulling himself forward.
You know what he runs like? He runs like Phoebe in that one episode of Friends where she's like, I like to go for runs, but I like to run weird because it's more fun that way. I think that seems the goal of this ritual.
This is too much.
It's like putting his elbows down and have no bones in it.
Yeah. Oh, he's run up that whole mountain that way.
Oh, God. What a doofus.
That's too much.
Also, we're gonna okay.
That's too much. Hey, did you see that YouTube video?
Yeah. So H.I. and Ed try to start a family. They find out that she's unable to have kids. She's barren, and their desperation becomes obviously central to the plot. And it's sad. See, this is the thing that's like it's a comedy with heart, because I didn't expect that. I didn't think that was going to be the reason. But at this point, I'm like, wow, what is going to happen in this movie? I've also seen 2 clips from this movie in the intro for this month where John Goodman's covered in blue paint and also Nick Cage is tied to a chair. So I have no idea where this movie is going at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is like for a comedy, like that's something you kind of have to give some credit to the Coen Brothers, that like a comedy wouldn't normally really have some, especially in the 1980s, wouldn't really have that as a plot point as to why they're doing what they're doing. Normally they would just kind of cut right to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, the doctor said we couldn't have it, so and we couldn't adopt, and just kind of leave it very nebulous and like at arm's length. Whereas this was like, no, and she's coming back, full of tears and with the sirens going on her car, and doesn't just say I can't have kids. She just straight up says I'm barren, which is like, for a lot of people, like a very heavy term to use for that.
Yeah, and this was part of what I was saying earlier about that Sons of Tucson show, but sitcoms in the mid 2000s that are one like single camera. I feel like we're taking inspiration from the Coen Brothers, and this movie especially is what I kind of noticed. Greg Garcia, who created My Name Is Earl and Raising Hope, both have the same kind of brand of comedy in them. I don't know if you guys ever watched those. I'm very familiar with My Name Is Earl, which has the same sort of like, country bumpkin sort of trying to make himself better as a criminal. Raising Hope is sort of like this guy like knocks up this girl and he's stuck with the baby and his family's weird, and it's just has
second time you said knocks up on this show, and I'm always like, ugh.
I'm sorry.
Such a gross term to use.
Impregnates.
Sure.
That's clinical.
Yeah, there we go. Very
clinical. He impregnates a woman, and then he's stuck with the kid because she's like, nope, I'm going to prison, because she, in Raising Hope, the woman that he impregnates goes to, I almost said it again, goes to prison. Anyway, this movie really just reminded me of like a period of sitcom television, those early single camera sitcoms that came out before every single sitcom became a mockumentary. But that in itself is another situation where people saw Ricky Gervais saw Spinal Tap and he was like, what if mockumentaries were the new sitcom? Right. So Ed and Hi hit a rut until they see an ad on television, not an ad, but a news segment about the Arizona family who own a like furniture shop. Painting Arizona, I believe.
Unpainted
Arizona.
Yeah.
And they're having 5 kids because of a miracle drug or some sort of fertility thing that they went through, and they end up having 5 kids. So the Dumb and Dumber here get the genius idea to.
My second gut chuckle of the movie was when they hear the news and it's like, well, and she's married to, of course, Nathan, Arizona, which, well, we all know who he is, and then like cut to him outside of a store. He's like, he's the undisputed king of unpainted furniture in all of Arizona. And I started laughing so hard. Like, how can we not know?
This is this is Southwest royalty.
Yeah, this is like where I'm like, this is very British, like inspired humor, where it's like the joke is not that he's the unpainted, it's that you can't possibly not know that he is the undisputed unpainted furniture king of Arizona. That's what's funny, is that we're expected to know this information before we go.
It's like there's like a dryness to it.
For me, it was almost like the Toronto equivalent of that would be like Russell Oliver jewelry. Like, of course, everyone you know who this is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're
man.
The cash guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cash for gold.
But that adds to the campfire element, or like at the foot of the bar, there's somebody there regaling a story about this, and of course Nathan, Arizona.
Exactly. I also do love that like every monologue that Nicolas Cage has in this movie is so flowery and like biblical, like you were saying. Like everything is kind of oozing with artistry in terms of the language he's using. But then anytime he opens his mouth, it's never great. You know, it's like in his head, everything sounds better than it actually is, and then when he goes to open his mouth, it just comes out as like,
in the moment he's a buffoon, but upon retrospect, he's a genius.
Exactly.
And this is the credits start 11 minutes into this movie, and so much has happened.
A lot, because you see the actual title when they reveal the caper, but that's because this is the focus of the movie, and so you're given this very tidy, very quickly paced, but absorbable introduction as to where everyone's coming from and why they are the way they are. And you're even given introduction to John Goodman and the other fella that like they're given
from Dick Tracy.
Yeah, right on. That is him. But yeah,
I was going to say he's the spaghetti dick detective from Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo.
But the thing is like I like recognize this guy's face, and I'm going through his IMDb, and it's like he's just in a whole bunch of shit. Like he's just
Well, he looks very sun damaged. Not too long after this in life, maybe all that makeup from Dick Tracy ruined him. But he's buttery smooth in this movie. But yeah, like it's funny you made your note earlier about young John Goodman, but like everyone looks so baby faced in this in a way.
Yeah, it's always fun to go back and have a stacked cast, because even like Frances McDormand and stuff and Holly Hunter, everybody has gone on to become not necessarily household names, but people faces and the whole movie is full of them. Even like the guy in the mechanic shop is like, oh yeah, that guy's in everything. he's a loud old man.
The guy that won't shut up.
I believe he was Jill's mom in Home Improvement, or dad, I should say.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say he became like a sitcom.
He played Jill's mom. Jill.
I remember.
He's like another character all these character actors that you've seen doing all sorts of performances and voice acting as well. I think that guy in particular has done some voice acting for like Batman the animated series and whatnot.
Yeah, the one guy that I was like, who's this guy? This guy's got to be somebody, because he looks like he is somebody. But when I saw him, I was like, he looks like Jermaine Clement from from Flight of the Conchords mixed with Martin Scorsese. Like he's probably been in a lot of stuff, right? I clicked on him. Two things in his whole career, and one of them was the prison psychiatrist or whatever he's playing. Turns out he's nobody. And then Randall Tex Cobb, wrestler, I think. Jason, right? Isn't he a wrestler?
Randall Tex Cobb,
the guy who plays the motorcycle man, the motorcycle monster man.
Oh, you know what's weird? I'm not sure, but I do recognize him in like a weird way. I'm gonna look at
one thing
that
I'm sure of is that his story on the set of this movie is fucking crazy. It's so funny.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a regular agent, and his agent only had him as a client. So it was like just one agent, one client. That was the relationship. And he was a wrestling agent. So like he would hire this guy to do wrestling shows and stuff. And they needed to do pickups. So when they called him to do pickups, this guy's agent demanded double the amount of money that they paid him to already be in the movie, because there's no way you need him now. You can't replace him now. So why aren't you going to give us double the money? And like, they're like, because we can't? What the hell are you talking about? We'll give you the standard pickup fee. And he's like, no, double the money. So they're getting extorted by some scumbag wrestling agent to try and get this guy to come back and ride a motorcycle for 5 minutes.
Meanwhile,
I was going to say he was a kickboxer and a professional boxer. I don't know if he actually ended up in professional wrestling, but it's funny that pro wrestling boxers are notoriously carnies. So it's funny that they did this.
Mm-hmm. And he also did not know how to ride a motorcycle.
Yeah,
and had to learn on set how to do so.
That is very funny. That this guy's whole character is basically on a motorcycle the entire movie, and he's like, I don't know how to do that.
I don't know how to do it. Show me. But back into the movie, we get the really bizarre scene where it feels like it goes on forever, but not in a bad way. Basically, Ed is like, we're gonna go steal one of those babies. I'm gonna drive you in there. You've heisted a mini heist. What could go wrong? And I think the funniest part is when he goes up and goes into the baby's room, he basically like lets them all go by trying to like pick one. And we get a lot of really funny scenes. And that's why I'm saying it felt like that scene in Evil Dead where the camera is just following Ash around the cabin, Evil Dead 2 specifically.
Yeah.
And that's what Steve was saying early in the show, where it feels like almost a Sam Raimi, but a family-oriented Sam Raimi moment.
Well, and a lot of like not quite point of view shots, but these like from the baby view of like on the floor underneath the crib and
very low
and stuff
angle,
like that. Yeah,
the whole scene is like shot at ankle level.
and there's just once again the cartoony quality of like a fox in a hen house, and all the hens are just kind of wandering around, and like he's trying to pick them all up at the same time, kind of thing, and just watching him scramble, and that's kind of another British comedy kind of thing again.
Yeah, being so overwhelmed with a situation that you've caused yourself, and like
it's a real Mr. Bean situation
where he's like picking them up and stuff. I think out loud I was like, is he trying to like pick the best one? Like, which one's the best?
Like sizing up the babies.
All these babies look exactly the same to me. I'm like, just take one and run. No, he's gonna pick the best one first. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he manages to re-wrangle all of them, ends up with no baby.
She sends it back in. It's so funny that.
And she's like, "Nope, get back up there and get us a baby." He's like, "I tried." One of them almost fell down a staircase. One of them went underneath the cradle. It was pandemonium.
And Holly Hunter is so good too, as well. She's like, when he does come back with the baby, she like just immediately bursts into tears like within seconds of having a conversation. She's like, I just love him so much, like ugly crying or whatever.
Like it's her own baby.
Yeah.
Well, this kind of leads into my little theory about the movie.
You said what?
I said what? So I have a little theory, and it kind of goes into fruition towards the end of it. So I don't want to go all the way to the end of it, but on the one side of good is the baby, that this baby draws out good in people. And this is the kind of first example of that, where at first Nicolas Cage is apprehensive to take the babies, that these are just, the very symbol of innocence and good. And that, his imperfection, he doesn't want to further upon this, but then Holly Hunter being firm, he goes and does it, and then as soon as the baby's presented with her, she just melts right away. And continuously throughout the movie there is this pattern of whenever people spend time with Nathan Jr., the baby, anything that's good within them gets drawn out.
Yeah, and everybody falls in love with the baby like immediately too. Like they can't help it but be like, my God, that's a beautiful baby. That's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen in my entire life.
That they
What I thought was funny about that is like this kid is like, I know Nick Cage has blue eyes and this has blue eyes, but they're both brunette, and this kid has the blondest hair and the bluest eyes, and nobody really questions it until they later, and they're not questioning it because of the way the baby looks. But they're like, "How'd you get a baby so fast?"
Listen, I had extremely blonde hair and blue eyes as a child, and neither of my parents have blue eyes or blonde hair, so it's just,
okay.
That just happens sometimes.
Oh yeah, I used to be nicknamed Billy Idol when I was a toddler.
In fact, my dad looked eerily like Nick Cage looks in this movie. He's got very blue eyes, and he's got that. But I got all the other side. I got the dark complexion.
We're not living in Game of Thrones where people are like golden hair, black hair. This is a bastard.
What do you know about being a bastard? Fun fact: the Coen Brothers had real quintuplets on set, but struggled with keeping them calm and coordinated during the filming of this. Never work with animals or babies.
If this was a modern movie, those babies would all be CGI.
Yeah,
absolutely nightmarish CGI. Yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't know that they were actually all like quintuplets. How the hell did they find that? It's got to be rare, right? Like,
the one set of quintuplets in Hollywood at that time.
It's got to be easier to find like 3 sets of twins and then just chuck one. We don't need all of them.
My little thought on that is that perhaps they probably wrote originally maybe triplets, and they don't need all 3, and then they find out like, oh, there's actually are quintuplets available, ready for rent. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, but I mean, I wouldn't know.
5 is way funnier than
5 is like a ludicrous amount of babies.
Yeah, there's too many babies. It is also like the joke is easy, but it's funny, which is like Harry, Terry, Barry, Larry, and Nathan Jr.
Nathan Jr.
It's so funny.
They take the baby home. They struggle with a whole bunch of different elements of not realizing that now they have a baby. Neither of them are equipped for raising a baby. They struggle with the challenges of caring for an infant. Comedy ensues as the inexperienced pair attempt diaper challenges and feedings. There's the family photo segment, which I thought was like really endearing and funny. It's really heartwarming because you're lulled into this like, they did it, they got their baby, what could possibly go wrong in any of this? And none of them are thinking about the fact they just stole a human from another family.
Yeah,
which is inherently so funny because these idiots are just so like devoid of thinking about like 5 minutes from now. They're living in the moment, buddy. They're one of the families from Idiocracy without just like shooting out babies over and over.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of an ongoing thing with them is there's this, inherent logic that they keep applying that just suits their immediate needs. That like, oh, they don't need all 5. That 5 is just a crazy amount of kids. So, why should, we'll help them out because they already said 5 is too many.
Yeah, we get that great moment too where they're setting up for the photo and she's starting to realize how much work this is going to be, and she keeps talking to him like while they're trying to get the picture set up, and he's like, we're set to pop here, honey. And when they finally do take the picture, you get the most sullen look in his face, and she's ranting at him in the picture, which I thought was just a great freeze frame. Just perfect.
But she's doing is asking for an answer from him, and he's not giving it to her.
And he's like,
he looks terrified. He's like, fuck. And she is doing is saying, can you just affirm everything that I'm saying? Like, please just say yes or sure or I love you, whatever you want. Like, just say anything, but he's not. He's just saying, we gotta smile for the picture. Come on, we gotta memorialize this in pictures forever.
We set to pop here, honey.
I also love when he takes the baby, he also throws down the Dr. Spock's child care book, and he's like, here's the manual. Calls it a manual, like it's a car. I looked up that book because I wanted to know if it was real.
Yep.
I was watching it.
It's absolutely
Danny,
real. Yeah.
And Danny was like, "That's a real book," and they said something about the book advocated for letting your baby cry itself to sleep. But I'm reading here now that he was actually the opposite of that. So there was another wildly popular book that said you need to avoid picking your baby up and giving it too much affection and keeping it on a sleep schedule and feeding schedule. And Dr. Spock was like, no. If the baby's crying, it means it needs something. You pick it up and you hug it, you show it affection and feed it if it needs to and change it if it needs to. So it turns out he wasn't a nightmare man. He was actually he was Spock from Star Trek.
Yeah. Using his great Vulcan logic.
To just briefly bring it back to me mentioning my dad, like this family dynamic, my parents were kind of this when I was growing up. My parents were kind of, my mom was kind of all over the place emotionally, and my dad was very much like dialed in, but add a lot more drinking and drugs to this dynamic. It seems like these characters, so we haven't really gotten to the point yet, but like he's a criminal and she's a cop, but she drops during that open. Oh no, we did get to it because she does this during the opening bit. She like quits being a police officer.
After learning that she's barren, that they can't adopt because of his criminal history.
Yeah. And what's interesting, the next thing that happens is HI's former prison buddies, Gail and Evil, they break out of prison and show up. And the whole time I'm going, these guys are criminals who clearly broke out of prison. They've stolen a baby. And this woman who used to be literally a police officer is sort of turning a blind eye to the kidnapping element. But once she sees these fucking the two worst dudes, they're straight out of a Quentin Tarantino movie too, and how like criminal they are and how dumb they are. You really get the sense of like she's on a tightrope of allowing things to fly, but she has no fucking time for these guys. First of all, we see them do kind of a Shawshank out of the ground. Yeah. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is I mentioned in the pre-show, somebody requested I show the clip of John Goodman emerging from the mud. But he's emerging from the mud just going, ah! And then when he goes to get his buddy, he pulls him out by the legs.
Yeah.
He ended up
those are the two types of way a baby can be born.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I was about to say as much. Like I think that was put in there specifically to show that everybody has been birthed at this point. Everybody's been birthed into a new sort of.
Are you sure about that?
Version
Are you
of
sure
themselves.
Everybody's been birthed?
Birthed into a new version of themselves is what I mean.
Yeah, but I think that the screaming is meant to be like they're babies. Like they're like they're screaming babies.
I want a super cut of John Goodman screaming in this movie, because it would be 4 minutes long.
It's also funny that they got like the two people that kind of resemble babies to do that.
Yeah,
you know? Like
funny that we were just talking about how they were baby faced, but quite literally with them. Yeah, it's very interesting to think about in retrospect. But yeah, especially like he's holding his friend up by the one leg, and they're both just shouting, and it's raining. Yeah. And the idea of them like tunneling through mud is also very, very Looney Tunes. Like,
but also they're covered in shit. We learn later.
Yeah, we ended up in the line. Yeah.
Well, we burst the sewer line, which we didn't expect to do, but they love me. Hard cut to them putting so much pomade.
So much pomade. Yeah.
Oh, while being muddy too.
Yeah, they don't.
That bathroom irked me.
Yeah. That's their number one. Their number one concern is getting their hair pomaded. Which, for as much pomade as they put in their hair in this movie, it always just falls back to curls over their face. Like they can't keep that like greaser look, just the way their hair goes. Which I thought was a really interesting thing. It's like nothing ever works out for them, even when they're trying to do their hair.
Mm-hmm.
You're also trying to like, when does this movie take place? Like this was, I guess they're supposed to be like in their 30s or whatever, or like maybe like their late 20s, or maybe early 20s. I don't know how old they're supposed to be, but they clearly have been in prison most of their lives.
Yeah.
And so I guess they probably went in there when pomade was the height of hair fashion.
It's true, but it's also one of those like out of time.
It's very
era.
timeless. Yeah, it's very
like
timeless.
it's
Listen,
easily
we know
the
that it came
80s.
out after Empire Strikes Back. It takes place after Empire
True.
Strikes Back because they name drop Yoda in this movie.
But it's very much the 80s because the 80s in small towns still looked like the 1950s. So
yeah, and kind of lends into that underprivileged lifestyle where like they're not really informed or educated too much on what they're doing, which also lends into their behavior.
There are vast swathes of the United States that still look like the 1950s,
Yeah,
especially
I'll
after
watch
that
it.
vote. Am I right over here?
Hey,
Oh, holy shit, he's back in the White House.
Anyway,
everybody says how much pomade, and I've got pomade on right now, and I love pomade.
No.
I enjoy how John Goodman has always this this salesman pacing with how he speaks. Mm-hmm. I think one of the few movies where he distanced himself from that is True Stories. I don't know if either of you have seen that movie. It's interesting, and it's almost a slice of Americana type movie where it's examining 1980s consumerism, but in that he plays like a very doughy, innocent individual, very childlike, where, you know, and that's made around the same time as this movie. And so to kind of see those two performances contrast against each other, where
hold on a second, that movie has David Byrne in it.
Yeah, that he made the movie. He directed and wrote it.
Insane. I need to see. I'm gonna.
True Stories is a great movie, and that's a movie where it's they've managed to cast a lot of twins to show up randomly all the time in the movie. Anyway, but where John Goodman has this constant like salesman approach to convincing High into letting them stay there. That logically this means it makes sense for them just to stay the night, and then his little toady brother just peppers in that like, well, yeah, I wouldn't let her talk like that if that were me. Kind of moments into there as well. So the duo really works in this movie in a very, once again, cartoonishly proportioned sense.
Yeah, most definitely. I do like, it's also like the physical extremes, right, in the casting, which it adds to it, right? Like everybody in this movie, it would be easy to draw them if you had to. Like, yeah. You know, like even if you had limited drawing abilities, you could probably get away with some hacky sketches, and everybody would know what character. But it's also like, you know, Nick Cage is wearing a specific shirt in the movie, and then later on, the younger brother is like shoved himself into that shirt. You know, he's wearing Nicolas Cage's shirt that is far too small for him.
That element of them like slowly taking more and more and more from them. Like they obviously haven't gone out and got all that chicken and beer for themselves. Like they just took it from their fridge. Yeah.
I counted, we were watching it, and I was like, there's like a long shot where it's just like, it's sitting there for long enough that I'm like, all right, I think I got time to count these. And I counted all the cans, and I was like, that's 26 cans. 26 cans in this one shot.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like
counted
not
wrong at first,
all.
and then he shifted, and there was like 2 more shoved into the couch. I'm like, oh, there's 2 more.
And he pulls out 5 more.
So yeah, that element of taking each other's clothes, which is another Coen Brothers weird little thing, especially in Big Lebowski, where there's characters swapping clothes for no reason, but you wouldn't notice if you didn't think about it.
That's right. We get him going to sleep that night. He has the dream with all the weird ethereal stuff. He starts to dream of this man on a motorcycle who is very much seems like Ghost Rider a little bit. I thought that was a funny little thing because, you know, Nick Cage goes on to play Ghost Rider, which I thought was interesting. And this character, Leonard Smalls, he ends up being hired to find the baby, but it really just instills a sense of paranoia in High because like he's dreaming about this, like he seems to have this like supernatural ability to like dream of things that come true, you know. it's kind of within the rules of the movie that it's happening, and we're just sort of there to like it's a way to sort of move the plot forward. It's a way of to narrate the story. But I thought it was really interesting that they show this character doing all these deplorable things, like he's throwing grenades at bunnies, and it's like objectively funny, but it's also like this character is horrifying.
But this is a dream, right? So like in this moment, it's meant to be like absurd, right? Like he drives by a flower and the flower bursts into flames. He doesn't do anything to the flower; it just bursts into flames at his presence.
Yeah.
But you know, he's proven to be real later in the movie. And you know, this is one of those things where it's like you have a nightmare and then you see something in real life and you equate it to the nightmare, and he's like, did I summon him? Did I summon this man from hell?
Yeah.
Or is he from hell for real? Did he summon him? We don't know. It's again the campfire aspect where it's like,
and that monologue that Kate
from my fears and all my doubts, they culminated into a man to hunt me down for stealing a baby.
Oh yeah. Well, that monologue he has about that dream sequence is probably my favorite part of the movie, where it all of a sudden, in a huge twist, all of a sudden there's this supernatural element at play. Even though it's all within a dream, but it ends up being contextualized later on that like, oh no, there was something this whole time, that there was a reason for me to be afraid of what we were doing.
Also, the idea that, like, you know, maybe he is having premonitions, it makes the ending a little bit sweeter, you know, like it's like a spoonful of sugar with medicine at the end, where it's like, you know, they gave the baby back, they didn't get the reward, all they got was like a little bit of advice from the unpainted furniture man mogul of Arizona. But then he has another dream, and then the dream that he has is that Nathan Jr. goes on to have a wonderful life and career, and that he and his wife end up having many children and many grandchildren and all that. So it lets you kind of leave being like, well, at least, you know, if he was able to conjure a demon motorcyclist from hell, maybe he was able to conjure himself a happily ever after with Holly Hunter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice.
That's one thing that is good about this movie, where like a lot of other Coen Brother movies, they either kind of just end, that the story has run out at this point, all of the wild circumstances have happened, or they end kind of like in a very cold, dark way, like in No Country for Old Men. Whereas this
watching that being like, I had the same reaction when I saw Jango Fett getting his head cut off by Mace Windu, where I was like, he's not dead, right? That's not him, right? The clone, probably.
I like how that was the tragedy of the movie.
Yeah, Jango Fett would rule. Why do you have to die like that?
But like that premonition thing is a repeat factor in all this, which adds to the fairy tale storybook element of it all, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, like, because it is told, like it more or less starts with once upon a time in a faraway land. It needs to end with a happily ever after as well, right? And they do bookend it like a children's story, which is good because it's not a movie for children at all, but it feels like one for adults, you know.
But I had that same sort of thought where, like, surely, I mean, we'll get to it, but I was like, surely they're going to end up either Arizona's like, here, just have this baby.
It's like, thought he was going to give him a baby. Here, not Nathan Jr., that's the best one. Here, take Larry.
He's all right, easy.
Or it's like, you
can't go into the sun for too long.
Well, I'll give you the stuff that we use to have our kids, but no, you know, she's barren, so there's no eggs to be fertilized. Yeah, it's very sad, you know.
It's a Rocky where his seed cannot take purchase, I believe.
Yes, that is the exact time.
Which is like a very biblical way to phrase it in a sense.
Yeah.
And this makes this premonition makes High very paranoid about keeping Nathan Jr. And then basically the next thing that happens is it's revealed to them via TV again that the Arizona family has noticed one of their children is missing. So he wakes up to that.
I mean, this is where I laughed the longest and hardest, which is like Danny was like, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Like, that's what they said to me after I finally finished laughing. And the line is like, which child was stolen? And he's like, I don't know, Nathan Jr., I think. Which is like, it's funny because like that's the ongoing joke is like there's so many of them that nobody actually knows which. Because you can't, all babies look the fucking same. I can't imagine bringing. Remember like that octuplets show or whatever, where it's like,
oh yeah,
they had 8 kids. You know that they named one of those kids something, and then somewhere along the line they fucked up, and it's not the same kid. Another kid.
Octomom.
Oh, truth is stranger than fiction. There are tons of wild stories of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they say, some people believe that he was abducted by aliens, and then he gets so serious and he says, "Don't print that, son. If my wife hears that, she'll think it's all over. She'll lose all hope." It's like
she'll lose all hope. Yeah.
That was one of the news reporters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it's the funniest fucking thing in the world that like, she's already devastated, but if she finds out that he might have been abducted by aliens, she'll lose all hope. Like, that's the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So the FBI comes to investigate. They ask a series of questions. That's sort of what Steve outlined there. It's very funny. The police also find the place where the boys escaped during all of this. So though, like their involvement comes into question a little bit. I thought it was funny that when we see them emerging from the mud, it's very like them coming out of like solid mud. But when they show it, there's just a hole in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I thought was interesting. And we also find out the bounty hunter man is real, because he shows up here and he's just like looking around. He hasn't approached Arizona yet. And then we get the really fun moment where Ed is like, "You guys got to go," and then John Goodman is like, "Hey, I hear it in her voice. She just doesn't know what she's talking about. Clearly, she's got a bee in her bonnet, and you got to lay down the law, soldier." And
there's a video shot of him pulling a spoon out of the cereal and just flings like a I don't know, like a streak of milk goes across the room. I'm like,
yeah,
I wonder if they like did that once by accident and tried to recreate it, or if it was happy accident. It makes him so sort of like he just disregards his surroundings so much, which again plays into later on when they not once but twice forget that the baby is on the roof of the car, drive away with the baby on the roof of the car,
which is a lot of repeating as comedy in this movie. Rule of threes kind of happens a lot, but it's like rule of twos some of the time.
It's a flexible rule.
It's a flexible rule. Frances McDormand and her husband Glenn, who's played by our boy from Everything. What's his name?
That actor I think is actually a real life friend of Nicolas Cage.
Okay, Sean McMurray.
Yeah, he's been in he's another character actor that's just been in so many different things. Like I think he was in a whole bunch of the Farrelly brother movies, the guys who did Dumb and Dumber and whatnot.
Yeah,
yeah, like he's been tons of stuff.
He's a haircut.
Yeah, it's that one Stevie haircut.
Yeah, he's got perfect teeth and a box haircut. Just put him in anything, and it's going to be automatically funny. I was gonna say I think he's in like, what's the one where he has DID? Me, Myself, and Irene. I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah. I'm just looking. He's been in hundreds of things as well.
Oh my god! His IMDb is endless. Oh my god!
204 things. He might be in more things than Sam Jackson. He through the 90s, he was in every sitcom for an episode. Showed up in a million movies. You would know him to see him.
Yeah, well, he's one of those character actors that excels at playing a slime ball.
He plays the other dad or whatever like that.
Well, and
dad.
And Barry, the cinematographer Barry Sonnenfield, He directed Addams Family and Addams Family Values.
Yeah, he's in Addams Family, which is a fantastic film. And Frances McDormand is the wife here. This couple shows up with their 5 garbage
Isn't she
children.
married to a Coen? She's married to one of the Coens, isn't she?
Yeah, Joel. Yeah, Frances McDormand. Yeah. So actually, Holly Hunter was originally supposed to be in that first movie, Blood Simple,
right?
And she couldn't do it, and so she suggested that Holly Hunter couldn't do it, so she suggested to try Frances McDormand instead, and that's how she met Joel Coen, and then they hit it off afterwards.
That's nice. And they're still married?
I believe so. And I think they have an adopted child together from Puerto.
No, they don't have an adopted. They stole it. They went to Arizona and they stole it.
Is that Nathan Jr.?
Yeah. At least imagine they named it Nathan Jr. And his name's not Nathan.
Adopt some child named Nathan Arizona Jr. That's ridiculous.
I really liked the line "Crazy World," right? That's what Glenn says, and then High says "ought to sell tickets," because he's like, we have this like perception of High that he's like this like idiot, ridiculous person, but then when you put him up against Glenn, High is like the pinnacle of humanity. Because this family sucks so hard. One of their kids, Glenn's like, my kid over there, he can write so good. He's writing all over. And he cuts to him writing, just like scrawling the word fart.
Yeah. Which the kid looks so like it looks like there's not a thought in that child's head, you know? Like
exactly.
His mouth is at the bottom of his chin. His tongue is half out. He's like writing
dead fart behind the eyes.
Yeah. But like it's
like all the kids are fucked. Every single one. One of them has
I was just gonna say
like bandage across half their face. The other one is just smacking everything with a stick. The other kid squirts him in the dick and is like, he wet himself. He wet himself, and like, runs away.
It's this funny contrast to like High and Ed wanting to have a baby and start a family at any cost, and meanwhile it's contrasted with this terrible dad and terrible family, and they're all unruly and they're all misbehaving, and you kind of wonder if like High is looking at them all and kind of thinking like, is this what I really want? There's this like kind of detachment from the whole situation that, as you were kind of saying before, with the family photo moment where like he's not validating or acknowledging what Ed is saying, and he's just kind of going through the motions. It's hard to say like exactly how committed to the idea of taking on Nathan Arizona Jr. he is.
Yeah, I think that there is an incredible sense of sort of like I guess like melancholy, I guess is what you would call it, like throughout the entire movie, or at the very least like a grass is greener mentality, where you're always sort of longing for an idea of something that you think you want, and and then you get it and you realize like, oh, it didn't change my life as much as I thought it would, and then you're left with an emptiness. You thought that it might have been filled up for a second, but it's like filling up a sieve with sand or something, or it's like it fills it up for a moment and it starts to deplete. And he's, I think, realizing, right? And he's realizing, and then like everything that's happening is making it more and more, making the holes in the sieve larger. The sand is depleting faster, and the straw is kind of like this guy asking to do like a wife swap. It's like, what the fuck? There's something wrong with my sperm. I don't know if I mentioned that, but you want to hear another racist joke? I got plenty of them. I'm gonna have to tell them twice because I can't remember.
Weird Polish jokes that like don't make any sense. The punchline is just that Polish people are dumb. It's so fucking of the era too.
I think it's also like an easy thing to get away with, right? Like if you look at a movie that is trying to do racist humor, but just to point out that somebody's an idiot, for some reason that's like the demographic you're allowed to throw into a movie, I guess. Like, yeah, just make fun of Polish people, I guess.
And has a payoff for his comeuppance at the end as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's even in the closing monologue. It's like, or maybe he made one too many racist jokes for his own good. I don't know.
I like the joke about diphtheria, tetanus, the dip-tet moment where Francis McDormand keeps being like, "You got to get the dip-tet shot. You got to get the dip-tet shot." And if they don't, they'll develop lockjaw night vision.
Yeah. I remember when the first time I watched this, I remembered the night vision, and the second time I watched this, I'm like, "Oh, same thought as the last time. What the fuck is night vision?" I didn't look it up.
Why is it
like,
bad?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Like
Yeah,
a cat. Yeah.
But it's like a misremembered thing that she caught from a magazine or something like that.
Exactly. Because night vision sounds like it would be very handy to have.
Yeah.
Glenn and Hai take a little stroll into the desert. They talk excitement and what excites them. I really like how Hai is so over this dude to begin with, and this walk was clear like the boys got to go on the walk because they got to get away from the women folk. And then Glenn is like, we're swingers. Let's wife swap. And
it's pretty drawn out though too. Like it's like this awkward conversation where the audience sort of you kind of see where it's going, but you're not entirely sure until he finally says it, and you're like, "Ew." No.
Yeah.
And Hai punches him so hard that later we find out that he has a neck brace and his face is broken. And he's like,
well, he also runs into a fucking pine or a palm tree or some shit. Like,
yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have gotten away with it if you didn't have something to hit me with. I wrote it what he actually says once he accuses him. But
she says you broke his nose, but like he broke his nose when he ran into that tree.
Yeah.
He didn't break his nose. He knocked him over.
And then naturally, Hai's immediate response to that is start to spiral again. We get that great line too. I don't know if it's happened already, but he's like, I found myself driving home, going past convenience stores that weren't even near my house. So he's starting to spiral.
Well, that was before they stole the baby.
Yeah.
Right.
That was when he felt like he didn't have a purpose because they couldn't make a baby. Mm-hmm. So he was like, well, if I can't steal money and soft drinks anymore, I gotta steal a baby.
If I can't steal monsters anymore,
Monster energy drinks, I guess I'll steal a human baby.
It's crazy to think too that in 1986 energy drinks like didn't exist yet, but that if they updated this story,
but cocaine was so much easier to get.
It's true. True.
That would be at the back of the convenience store. Yeah.
You just ask for the white special. But we do get a scene.
This movie is the same age as I am.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm 1 year older than it. I'm 1 year older than it.
You guys are just babies. Nathan Juniors.
Listen,
this movie came out 2 months before I was born, almost to the date.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably still in theaters when I was being Arizonaed out of the hospital.
It was at least in that.
My parents stole me from the hospital.
It's revealed here on the show. It's revealed.
You're a quintuplet this whole time. There's 4 other people who look just like you somewhere out there.
Yeah, I'm related to, I don't know, James Marsden and like somebody who looks like Oswald Cobblepot. And the other 2 are dead.
Oh my God.
They ate each other in the womb. None of us ate them,
but
they ate each other in the womb.
Oswald Cobblepot from Gotham specifically, because every other version of Oswald Cobblepot looks like a big fat guy.
Mm-hmm.
The Penguin,
the Gotham show. Remember Gotham show? And he's just like,
well, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I said.
Oh, I thought you meant the Colin Farrell one where he's like, "Whoa, over here."
No, that one's him over here. Goyles.
Me over here. I gotta go.
I gotta go, Goyles. That's Goyles over there.
It's for me. It's Danny DeVito in his one-piece pajama outfit or bust. That's it.
Pajama
I'm gonna go
outfit.
get into my long underwear and play this
Bite
stage
your
like a
nose.
hop from hell.
Just throw me in a dumpster when I die. I'm gonna pretty woman that hooah.
When I was born, my parents threw me into a dumpster that fell into a river that led into a zoo.
Rah, rah,
And I
rah.
was
Nose
raised
bite.
by penguins.
Anyway, reverts to robbery mode. He tries to rob a convenience store for Huggies and cash. The store clerk hits the alarm and the police come. Ed is with her. She's like the driver and all this. And then we get this really long multiple chase scene extravaganza. There's a dog stampede. I love the dog thing because it's like one dog starts chasing him and then a dog like runs from another yard and joins up. And by the end of it, there's like 6 dogs just like chasing high through everywhere that he's going.
It almost gets to like a Benny Hill level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she just sees it happening in the convenience store and she's like, nah, I'm out. And she drives away. And then
it becomes a full Looney Tunes skit. You know, like everything that is happening just becomes more and more cartoonish as it goes. Everything from like the store clerk is like a teenaged albino. And when he pulls out a gun, it's just not a normal gun. It's like
it's a Desert Eagle.
Crazy angle. The gun is humongous.
Yeah.
It's like a dirty
when the cops show up, the cop is like has his hand out the window.
It's just pumping lead in the air.
It's not. He's not just got his arm out the window. He's sitting out the edge like it's a fucking Mad Max movie. And then the cop breaks and he flies out the window and rolls and gets up and just continues shooting. And then, you know, what kind of dog is he going to meet? A big dog, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. A Doberman, the easiest dog to draw. It's just all pointy bits.
Yeah.
The teeth are pointy, the ears are pointy, the nose is pointy, and the body is all pointed.
Yeah.
That's why I keep saying everyone in this movie is easy to draw, even the animals.
Well, I love that. That's a great observation. I love that this scene also has High experiencing some good luck, a little bit of good luck for once when he robs a place, because everything kind of goes his way as he's trying to escape. He's still bumbling. He's still a bumbling idiot.
I don't know if this is true.
Well, like he runs, he jumps over a fence and makes it over. He manages
attacked
to
by
like
a dog. It's like everything that's going his way is then met by something that is terrible.
But he doesn't end up directly back in prison.
Yeah,
I think
that's true. But the only reason that his entire toil here is ended is because she comes back for him. If she didn't come back for him, he would 100% be in jail.
Well, that's
or he would have been pumped full legged by that butcher or whatever. Remember when he goes into the grocery store and he pulls out a double barrel shotgun? He hasn't even stolen from that place yet.
But this whole thing of him, like, you know, repeating a bad pattern from before in his earlier life, you know, exploding in his face and becoming this massive farce, only to be brought out of it again by Ed. It kind of speaks to that whole element of these imperfect people struggling with their bad habits. And what helps break the bad habits is, you know, their relationship to each other. And for that whole chase sequence, I don't know if this would make sense to you both, but it reminded me in a weird little way of the big chase sequence from the original. Oh gosh, I just blanked on the name, with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. Point Break, the big running chase sequence from Point Break, where they're running away from the bank on foot and then going into the houses and running over fences and everything, except that's all in daylight. But that wide angle camera lens shot of High running through the house that's full of people, and they're just sitting there watching this happen.
Like he doesn't just go through for a bit. He goes like downstairs, back upstairs, and then it shows the cop, and then it shows all the dogs.
Yeah. But yeah, but it's where Point Break it's taken so very seriously. In this, it's just bombastic the whole time, and very high energy, and just seeing like the big wide leans and wide posture Nicolas Cage has in that sequence, that more than just what the wide angle lens brings to it, but that like he's bounding upstairs and you know, slipping through doorways. It's actually a very dynamic scene, and once again continues with that whole cartoonish exaggeration of everything.
Yeah. Even just like the car doesn't just crash and he gets out, you know, like he brakes so hard that he flies through the windshield, you know, like he has to, everything is crazy. And like the you would think that once the police arrived, the store clerk wouldn't also keep chasing him, but the store clerk is chasing him as well, you know, like forever.
Yeah, like the only, as I said, like it was like a Benny Hill thing. Like the only thing not included in the chase was like a woman chasing Nicolas Cage, trying to give him a big wet kiss.
Yeah,
it is so over the top and bombastic. It was great.
Or like a sequence where, like a Scooby-Doo moment where he goes in a door and
through the hallways.
Door. We can assume that happened off screen, but it definitely happened in the back areas of the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
But like
it was funny to see him like jack that car too, and the old guy's just like flabbergasted, and he like bumbles that as well. Like it's very much in that same vein. Sorry, Steve.
I was gonna say that like it's funny that like the chain just keeps going, right? Like, and the chain doesn't really break until she comes and gets him. Like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's like they're adding chain after chain after chain to this stupid moment, but it's so good. It's like it's probably one of the best moments in the movie, but like it is so dumb, but it's so much fun.
But it's like it's pure comedy all the way through. Like it's everything that's happening is like very deliberately funny.
It reminds me of Hot Fuzz, and not just like the part in Hot Fuzz where they're in this convenience store at the or the supermarket at the end, but like that entire end sequence of Hot Fuzz that is essentially a long extended chase sequence that's broken up by action that is competently filmed and excitingly filmed, but it's like also very funny, you know, like
and I think in Hot Fuzz that's also a parody of Point Break for that chase scene in Point Break.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think it was Quentin Tarantino. I'm not sure, but I listened to a podcast not too long ago, and this sequence was brought up in it, and I'm pretty sure it was Quentin Tarantino where he said like this sequence in this movie was shot in a way that had never really been shot like this before, and it would be after this changed, like everything would be changed. Everybody would look to this as an example of how you do not only an action sequence, but every comedic action sequence now has to at least live up to this standard. But even action sequences can look to this for visual advice on how to make something exciting, because it is exciting.
I wanted to ask you guys.
He grabs the Huggies, and then immediately behind him, an explosion of like cheese puffs and tuna, like, and he starts running, and there's more and more. You're like, okay, yeah, this is. I
wanted to ask you guys, like, this probably isn't the first time this happens, but there's a very prominent trope that does happen in usually crime, like cop movies, hard-boiled cop movies, crime movies, where they run, like the chase ends up in somebody's like flat or apartment or home. And there is a very good example of that in this movie where they run through that house and they're like this house is impossibly big, where they keep opening doors and going to new rooms. And I was wondering, there's no way this is the first time this has ever happened, but it's interesting you said that, Steve, because this whole chase scene as a whole seems to be very important and draws a lot. Other things draw a lot from it. That's interesting. That is really interesting that you said that. But I think the 1970s is where the thing comes from, where there's a foot chase happening. And they go through somebody else's flat or apartment or house. Or is this the first time? Is this the first time?
No, that's not the first time. But I'm talking about the competency in terms of like an action sequence,
right? Okay,
like that's what he was talking to. He wasn't referring to like going through someone's house. He was referring to when you're in a supermarket and the stocks are exploding as somebody's running down it with with Huggies in your arm, like that kind of stuff. The way it's shot is it's breaking a mold, and it's not just doing it in terms of that action sequence, but how you film comedy in general and how you film in general, right? Like we talk about the moment that is emulated from Evil Dead 2, which they use for the dream sequence, but that type of filmmaking is being done constantly and consistently throughout the movie. It's shooting things for the content of the movie in a way that you wouldn't necessarily do it, and it makes the movie more interesting, and it makes it feel more dynamic and actiony even when it isn't necessary. Like the shot, the flat shot of the car with all the kids climbing over it and they're all like beating his car and stuff. That's like a flat comedy angle. It's funny. But then it cuts to a sequence where it's a low angle and it's following that one kid with the stick through the entire trailer as he's smacking everything, and you're getting a shot of each one of these fucked up children, and then it like pans over to like, does the Pope have a funny hat? And, well, yeah, I suppose it is pretty funny. As he goes in and gets him like a beer or whatever, right? And like it's all one fluid shot. Like they're just kind of they're taking something that on paper would be, a funny line, and they're making every single thing about the scene funny instead of it just being a funny line, because that line is not that funny, but when you add everything together leading up to it, it is.
Yeah, he loses the first Huggies in the street at some point. He ends up in this grocery store. He picks up new Huggies, and he runs through to the end of the grocery store where the store clerk there now puts a gun in his face. And then Ed finally shows up to pick him up, and they get in the car and they drive down the street, and then they pick up the original Huggies. So, I thought that was great. That's part of my theory that
scene is shot so well, right? Like they have a low angle to the car, and it's on some sort of rig where it's following the wheel of the car, and somebody reaches out and grabs the Huggies. There's 25 other ways you can film that, and that is probably the most interesting in terms of visual,
Yeah. And even with the everything exploding, the Cheetos puffs in the air and everything, that kind of stuff lends into I don't know if I can explain this well, what I'm thinking, but the excuse me, the idea of what's informing why this scene is interesting is that they're using existing elements in there. So like in a convenience store, they would have convenience store food, and if it explodes, it'll explode like this. And so how do we use that to make it visually appealing? Whereas if you go to another Nicolas Cage movie, Face Off, of course, when someone walks into a room, it happens to be a room with doves in it, and the doves fly up. And so there's sometimes cheap elements to heighten a situation. Whereas in this, they're using realistic, grounded elements that find a way to elevate it. And that's more often achieved with simple technical things like the choice of angles of shots. So like, yeah, as you say, you would find an unintelligent or uninteresting way to show that they're picking up the Huggies, but because that just really informs that they get the Huggies after all. But to find an interesting way to do it, that I think that's a part of the Coen Brothers' way of keeping the pacing going. That like it's just keeping you captivated along the way.
Yeah, I agree. But I do want to say, Tim, if you ever besmirch John Woo on this podcast,
it's entertaining. I'm not saying it's bad. It's merely different, and it achieves different results.
I have like me and my buddy Matt have this like ongoing like John Woo joke where we just like talk to each other as John Woo. Like we're like, what this scene could use? The serving cart, and you jump on it, and you have two pistols, and you roll down the hallway, and a bunch of doves pop out of them.
Oh, there will always be an arena for action schlock, for sure. And the more heightened, the more goofy, the better.
There was a video game that came out. I can't remember, but it was like Chow Yun-Fat was in the video game, and he was playing Detective Tequila from like, John Woo movies. I can't remember what the game was called, but like in the special features.
True Crime?
I don't remember. Could be anything. Could be anything with true or anything with crime in the title, but probably. But in the special features of the game, you go into like a bar, and like it's the character is the bartender, and he turns around and he like pours a drink, and he goes, "Hey, how's it going? I'm John Woo." It's just John Woo is like in the game, and you can like talk to him. It's so funny. I'm John Woo.
Interesting. It's great he's still around.
I think it's True Crime Streets of LA.
I don't think that's right.
No, you're right.
Just type in John Woo video game.
That's a good one.
What did you put in? True crime?
True crime.
Like you put in what you thought it was? Yeah.
It's called confirmation bias, okay? It's called Stranglehold. The game is Stranglehold.
There we go. That's definitely right. Yeah.
That's close to true crime.
But like there was like parts in the game where you could, once your meter went up or whatever, and there's a lot of enemies in the room, you press like the two joysticks at the same time, and it goes into like a bullet time, and like a bunch of doves go around you, and you shoot all the enemies around you.
Perfect.
It was amazing. It was a good game.
I was hoping you were going to say you just throw doves at them or whatever.
No. He did it like his movies, where the doves show up specifically when they need to. You know.
Yeah, perfect.
It was good because Detective Tequila is like one of his characters from his movies, right? Like that's. Anyway, we're not on a John Woo month yet. But, you know,
it's not Nic-Vember yet.
If
Nic-Vember, oh my god! Shit. Write that down. So back at the house, Ed tells the criminal element. That's what I kept referring to Glenn and Yvel in my notes as the criminal element. To get the fuck out of here, you guys got to go. But they have a job for hire. They have one last crime spree, basically, and then we're also reminded of the bounty hunter. And he starts to write a note basically saying like, I know, I'm gone, I'm leaving, I don't want to have any part of the criminal element once again, that I've left here. And we find out that High's name is Herbert. So that's interesting.
Jason's like,
I was kind of like that, because the whole time I'm going like, what the fuck does this stand for? But the bounty hunter shows up, and he goes to see. This is where he actually goes to see Arizona.
Have you guys ever met a Herbert in your real lives before? I don't think I have.
The only Herbert I know is Saint Hubert, the fried chicken chain, or not fried chicken, rotisserie chicken chain in Quebec.
The only Herb I know is
Herb, this boy has a question about a toothbrush.
This is part of the Home Alone. Is this
toothbrush approved
by the American Dental Association? What the fuck are you talking about, Kevin McAllister? Is the reaction. Anyway, sorry.
Herb, there's a boy here with a question about a toothbrush.
So he proposes that he can find the kid, and Arizona basically says like, look, there's a bounty. You go find the kid and get the bounty. There's nothing else for us to talk about here, because that's what it is. And he does the best thing I've ever seen in a movie, where there he is. He snatches a fucking fly from in front of Arizona's face and doesn't injure the fly. And the whole premise of this character's point to this point has been that he's like blowing up small animals. I know this all happens in High's dream, but we're supposed to experience that this man is a horrible villain who is like Old West, like he's straight out of a Red Dead Redemption game.
Yeah, he's wearing only animal hides, maybe human. He also has baby shoes on his belt for some reason.
Yeah.
He's hunted babies, he said. He says it. I've hunted babies before.
Like, I can't hurt a fly, but I will. I'll hurt every fly.
He also said, you got flies. And Nathan Arizona gets so offended. He's like, no, I don't. Why would you even say that? This entire place is climate controlled, and all the windows are double sealed. Like, there's no way a fly got in here. What the hell are you talking about? And it is good that the scene is crested by him pinching a fly out of midair with his index finger and his thumb.
Yeah. This guy, he's got skills. He's a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. And he also like disappears without a trace immediately.
Yeah. While he's in front of you, like he doesn't even look away. He's just like,
here's Duster from Mother 3 drawn, stylized. Tell me this isn't High.
Okay, I see it much better now.
Even the blue shirt, yeah.
And the
All right, sorry, I wasn't on the.
In 3, 2,
No, it's so much scrolling.
Why did it?
It was already mid-played from the last time I had paused it.
That's funny.
Uh-oh. Boner alert.
I like how that's like come to stay. It's that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Steve didn't believe that was a real song.
I thought it was a real song. Like an actual song. I was like, is that a real song? Like,
No, it's
like that was on the radio? I knew it was Rihanna, but I was like, did Rihanna make a song with "Uh-oh, boner alert" in it? What the heck?
Well, the writers of Saturday Night Live did.
Mm.
Glenn shows up to fire high, unfortunately. Big man, here's the line I wanted. I wrote this down. Here's the line that Glenn says that made me crack up. Big man, now that you don't have something around to clobber me with, but the reality is he punched him in the face and he turned around and ran into a tree. Which is so good. And he reveals that he knows the baby isn't his. And then he said he'd rather have the actual baby than the bounty money, which is pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? This guy? Or the
No, when Glenn,
Oh yeah, this is when the movie becomes like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where everybody is vying over the baby and everybody wants
becomes Rat Race.
Yeah, I guess if you want to compare it to another movie.
Well, you just did
a movie that everybody knows, Rat Race.
Listen, Rat Race was an era. It was a point in time.
You know, the movie starring Seth Green and Rowan Atkinson, I think.
Yeah, and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Was Wanda Sykes in it?
It's an ensemble. I don't think Wanda Sykes was on
ensemble. What the fuck is an ensemble?
An ensemble. An
Oh,
ensemble.
Yeah,
Also,
John
the
Cleese
crime
was on it.
guys. John Cleese was there.
John
The
Cleese
crime
was there?
guys also know. Gale and Evel.
We should do Rat Race on this show because I would do that.
That's absolutely a hey, did you see this one
Yeah.
program. Gale and Evel, realizing ransom potential of Nathan Jr., kidnap the baby themselves and plan to exchange him for the money. Fun fact, the scene where Gale and Evel flee with the baby was a Coen Brothers homage to classic heist films.
Is that Chat GTP again or whatever?
Listen.
You need to vet these before you read them. Come on.
Oh, I'm betting them on the fly. That one I just read out. But
Just so you guys know, them stealing something was an homage to other movies stealing something.
no, a lot of the fun facts on this one were very much that.
Brought to you by the internet.
Leonard Small's character was inspired by Western movie villains and designed to symbolize H.I.'s guilt about the crime. So that one I didn't read. So I am vetting them on the fly, but that one I think it's funnier when I just read them.
You have to very specifically say that it was Chat GTP or whatever it's called. Is it Chat GPT or
GPT?
Because sometimes it sounds like you're saying it, and I'm like, where did you pull this out of a fucking porta potty?
Anytime, listen, for all you viewers at home and Steve specifically, anytime that I go, fun fact, it's ChatGPT.
I did something like that in high school where while reading my presentation and not vetting it ahead of time, I literally said out to the class, for more information, please click here.
Uh-oh.
and the jig was up.
That reminds me a lot of me trying to read a newspaper and scroll on the newspaper.
Sorry to catch you off guard there, Steve.
Oh my god. I think I just shot Pinot Grigio out of my nose.
Ever snort Pinot Grigio in reverse?
I didn't know that could happen.
It was thoroughly embarrassing.
Click here. Did you go like this after?
All of the heads looked up and started tilting.
Wait, what?
The people not paying attention to your presentation were now paying attention.
Yeah, especially the teacher.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yes.
Holy shit! Fuck my voice up.
Sorry,
it was like almost in my stomach and came back up out my face. I was gonna say something too in response, but I can't remember now. Anyway, whatever.
Well, the idea that there was homaging the heist.
Guys, just have one at a time, please. I can't handle this.
They have a scuffle. It's the best fight I've seen in a lot of movies because first and foremost, Nick Cage did this amazing thing where he goes to do like a double axe handle like this. And
You're underwater again, Jason.
He just scraped. You were underwater earlier. I didn't call you on it. You just
I
scraped.
just want to make sure everyone can hear you when you're talking for a long time and no one
Thank
can
you.
understand you. It's...
I love you.
I love you too.
Scrapes his knuckles.
Scrape knuckles, yeah.
Scrapes his knuckles on the popcorn ceiling, and then he gets pushed into a cabinet, and fucking John Goodman elbows the window out and then punches past his head into the cabinet, which is so fucking good. It's so.
It's a very
I love
good
fight
close
choreography.
quarters fight, yeah.
Yes,
but this is also good fight choreography. Again, like, what is the funniest way to do this? He goes to punch somebody, and when he swings back so hard, he blows a window out with his elbow and then punches through a cabinet. But also, what's even funnier, he's going to do like a Captain Kirk hammer punch to your back, but he's going to scrape his knuckles on the popcorn ceiling, and then we're going to do a close-up of him going, oh. It's like,
but then the whole
that is what the noise you would make. Ah!
Oh. The whole time all of this is happening, Nick Cage is letting out like a yell. It's kind of like, ah. It's so fucking weird. And then John Goodman basically like throws him through a wall. And when he goes through the wall, he hits the toilet, and the toilet doesn't even buckle. He just hits the floor. So
I do like that the other brother is like holding the baby's ear and then like his ear to like try and shield the baby from hearing the noise. And he's like really, he's very concerned, you know, you can tell that this guy he's the dumber of the two, but he's also the one that is like the sweeter of the two.
Yeah,
more sensitive.
He's got the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, or at the very least, he understands trauma. He's like, I don't want to give this baby trauma. He probably went through a lot of it himself, you know.
But once again, it shows that like this baby endears some level of good out of people.
Yeah, I like that idea that it's this sort of like, it's not even like it's pulling it out of them. It's almost like it's providing it for them. Where it's like, I don't know, you pick up sort of like a relic or like an item in a video game, and it's like you now have +3 empathy or something. You know, like
the Nathan Arizona Jr. test telescope. That is a very like fun, playful fight, and another great use of like John Goodman's size. That like he's got a big, playful bear size to him.
I wonder if, because I know that Quentin Tarantino is a fan of this movie. I wonder if like this fight in particular was an inspiration for the fight in Kill Bill 2, where they have this sword fight in close quarters inside the trailer, because there are some similar elements, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially when I heard him saying like, why wouldn't you film something in the way that a lot of the action sequences in this movie are filmed? And then I see something like Kill Bill Volume 2, where there is a very similar setting, and even some of the same kind of stuff happens. Like she gets thrown through the wall into the bathroom as well, right? And then they're tussling in the bathroom and stuff.
That's interesting.
I'm not saying that it is, but like knowing that Quentin Tarantino likes this movie, I would say maybe like there's a good chance that he's like, well, you know, it's a fight in a trailer. Maybe I'll go back and watch that fight in a trailer in another movie and see if I can like make it as good, if not better, than that fight.
Well, now I want to see an anthology with 3 stories that are a Coen Brothers story, a Sam Raimi story, and a Tarantino story, like kind of like a Grindhouse. With 3 of them make the 3 vignettes. I think that would be fucking
fun, yeah.
That would sell
Especially
a lot of seats.
All 3 of them are also like wild writers too, right? Like they don't make normal stories. They make insane stories. Like there's never a normal story coming out of any of those guys. Like it's a very normal tale, but everything else is fucked, or everything's fucked, but everything seems normal.
Watching this today too, it's like Sam Raimi got a crack at Spider-Man, and he also got a crack at the MCU with Multiverse of Madness, which I like that movie. I know a lot of it's divisive, but I'd like to see a Coen Brothers MCU. Which superhero do Steve, just play along, please. which superhero in the established MCU do the Coen brothers hit it out of the park with? Because I was thinking Ant-Man 4. Ant-Man 4,
You're not
Coen
even
brothers.
give them a new hero. You're gonna give them the fourth in a franchise.
It would have to be like a detective-like superhero. Like MCU, I can't quite see it. I would almost say The Question from DC.
Batman. Coen brothers Batman would fucking wreck house, buddy.
It would be dramatic. But I don't know. I don't know. That's it would be so out of left field for them to do a superhero movie that it almost like the sun and moon will collide today. And there's also this new Coen Brothers movie that they've made.
I would make Ghost Rider.
Hey.
And it would be starring Leonard Texas Gumbo or whatever the fuck this guy's name is.
That sounds like military call.
Yeah.
License plate reads Leonard Texas Gumbo.
Texas Gumbo.
Niner alive even.
Deploying drone now.
Also, Nick Cage has literally played Ghost Rider and is in the MCU technically based off of like what they own. Just make Ghost Rider 3 in world MCU Coen Brothers. I think that's the answer.
I don't think that I would ever be interested in seeing a Coen Brothers MCU project, in all fairness, because I don't think that they would thrive in previously established context. You know, giving them a character, because people always have expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you were to give them something, it would have to be something that everybody would be absolutely okay with them taking it, stripping it down to its skeleton, and then rebuilding it from there. Which is what superhero movies used to kind of be.
What about a Rogue movie? That's Coen Brothers.
You know, it'd be great.
Or a Gambit movie.
Or a Green Ranger movie.
Coen Brothers trying to film their little Zords would be a lot of fun.
Listen, I think Gambit is a lame character, and everybody loves Gambit. I know, but whatever. Fuck that guy.
No, but he's got a southern accent.
Listen to me, mon chéri. I am a twisted sex pedophile. Not pedophile.
Pervert. Whoa.
I don't know. Maybe.
He's the
I
most
am on a register.
repressed. He's the most rogue, the hottest, and he can't even. Anyway, I think a rogue movie done by the Coen Brothers that's a lot like Fargo would be an interesting thing, but whatever. Weird criminals rob a convenience store.
You mean like Rogue, the X-Men character?
Yeah.
Told like Fargo?
Yeah.
Like she kills people by accident and they're hunting her or something? Like, what do you mean?
Something like that, yeah. Like kind of an origin-y story that's like really small scale. It's weird, like a Coen Brothers movie.
No. I don't know. It would be kind of interesting if they made up their own superhero and like did their own thing. Like I would like
a Shyamalan thing kind of thing with Unbreakable.
Yeah, exactly, like a Shyamalan. Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. But like, I also don't think they're interested in that. Are they? Have they ever? Expressed
they're not. It's just a fun thought experiment.
I understand what hypotheticals are. I'm not a fucking idiot.
Well, you guys are like, no, absolutely not. What are you talking about?
Because there are specific directors that I actually have zero interest in seeing them be forced into like a vice. Like Sam Raimi works because he likes doing weird, kooky, crazy shit, right? Like I would let Sam Raimi direct every single superhero movie if it were up to me, because I think that he knows how to do it and he's good at it. And he was doing it before Spider-Man. Darkman is a superhero movie that he made, and it's great. And the Spider-Man movies, like, say what you will about the ones you don't like, but I think that Spider-Man 2 is one of the best movies.
Spider-Man 2, hands down.
It's in my like top 20 of movies that exist. Like, I love that. And I loved the Multiverse of Madness. I know a lot of people didn't like that one, but I
enjoyed it. Yeah,
I'm so tired of like a lot of the Marvel stuff that comes out that when I saw one that was at least doing weird, different stuff, I'm down for this. Yes.
A music note battle in an MCU movie, fuck me up with
a music note battle in any movie. Like, that's just a cool, fun idea, and it was good. Yeah. And you know, I don't care if that eyeball looked stupid. It was an eyeball in a forehead. I was down. I was in.
Well, they haven't brought it back. They're perfecting the CGI for it now over the last 3 years. So when you see
What do you mean? They haven't perfected CGI already at this.
Nope.
There's so much perfect CGI.
Well, it's not Doctor Awkward. It's Doctor Strange. Like, just make it weird. Whatever.
Whatever you want
Dr.
to say.
Bizarre.
Doctor Awkward Puss.
I love when Tim slams his table because you know it's funny.
Sorry. Anyway,
Listen, the criminal element robs a convenience store, which is funny. They get some supplies. They forget Junior on the roof, and he's gone. Basically, that I love this sequence because they're just in their own world. You think they're buying the stuff, and then he pulls out the gun and he's like, "Listen, I gotta rob you now."
yeah, by the way, this is a robbery.
Yeah.
And Elville also does that weird thing where he's like, "Get on the floor and count to 682, and I'm going to come back halfway through to make sure you're not making me a liar." I thought that was really funny.
That was funny, but the other thing in the scene is like I think my third gut buster, where I was like laughing for a little bit too long, where everyone was like, "All right, Steve, we get it. It was funny, but it wasn't that funny." And I'm like, "No, it was." I was like sweating, like dabbing my forehead. And when he's like, "What about these?" And he's like, "Oh, those are balloons." He's like, "They go up in funny shapes." And he's like, "No, not particularly, unless round is round."
And then he gets back in the car and he's like, "I got balloons." And John Goodman's like, "Do they go in a funny shape?" Well,
and he says, "No, just circles."
Yeah.
Like, it's
did you
very
guys
cute, but it's also so stupid, which is just like, and it's like a slice of life weird thing that like,
Yeah,
you might hear somebody say,
like a very dry, witty remark kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then
You guys-
the crowning achievement of the bit is that he's like, "I might come back and halfway through to make sure you're still counting." And then he's like, "To hell with it." And he gets up and he sees them coming. And he's like, "Oh," and goes back. He starts counting again.
Polar Knights said this exact comment on an episode a couple weeks ago, and I have to wonder, did you just copy and paste that from the previous episode? Because you're right. I have been drawing this weird. This weird.
Mine nice tight to my face.
This is just marker. That's it.
Yeah. Tim just like he puts chapstick all over his face and he dips his face into a salad bowl of cinnamon.
This is just my cat hanging on for dear life on my face right now.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you think that they did the scene? So when they go back to pick up the baby, was that shot in reverse? Where they pull right up to it perfectly?
Of course.
Yeah.
You think that they sped a car up to a baby in a carrier?
Listen, I saw a music video from Aerosmith today, a portion of it where the guitarist was standing on a train track, and a train is coming up to him. At the last second, he steps off the train track, and there was no camera trick. He just did that.
It wasn't like a composite show.
I'm just saying, obviously it was shot that way in this, but what if they did just do that?
I think I might be wrong, but I think that Red Letter Media did a review on this movie at some point, and I think Macaulay Culkin was the person there. Like, they did one of their reviews or whatever. They talk about like old movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Richard Evans asked the same question that you just asked, Jason, which is like, how do you think they did that? And Macaulay Culkin was like, "Oh, they just reversed it." And he was like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, they did the same thing in Home Alone." Like, it's Macaulay Culkin. And you're like, "Oh yeah, true." Because there's a scene where the car goes up to his face. He's like, "Oh!"
Right.
They just I screamed, and then they just drove the car away from me.
Yeah, and the sequence where he rides the crazy carpet down the stairs, that was shot in reverse. They pulled him up the stairs backwards, not really.
Yeah, but also the scene where he's like, "Is this toothbrush approved by the Dental Association of America?" That was also filmed in reverse.
Reverse. Yeah. What a strange movie. Ed realizes Oh yeah, sorry. The old man's still counting. He gets up. He gets like 10 away from the number he's supposed to
I just
count
brought
and he
this up when you
stands
were
up.
gone, yeah.
Mm.
And he's like,
mentioned it
Matt.
already, yeah. It's
Okay.
very, very funny. When the car is coming again, he goes back down. And then like the whole scene afterwards, you can hear him like very faintly in the distance, like 784, 785.
This is when Ed realizes that him and High are like no better than this crime duo who have stolen their the child in question. The bounty hunter catches up with them at the destroyed house. They're no longer there. And this is a scene I laughed out loud at, where he's looking around menacingly at all the things, looks directly at the scrawl on the wall. You see him go, and it says fart. That's funny.
It is also funny that he's smelling around the room too. And he's like, and then he goes and he smells a fart. Like he's basically smelling a fart.
This word's correct. It does smell like a fart.
Yeah.
I bet
I do also like that he's like, I suppose we can keep him. Call him Gale Jr. And I'm like nobody in the movie can think of a name for this. Not even his real parents. They call him Nathan Jr. and they call him High Jr. and then Edwina Jr. And now this guy's calling him Gale Jr. They are such basic fucking idiot people. They can't even think of a name. Except for the one lady who's like, you should call him Jason. I love biblical names.
My name is Jason.
I remember being like, Jason's gonna love this.
I didn't even bring it up when it happened earlier, but I had it written down. I was like, this is not the time. They rob the boys rob a bank. The criminal element robs a bank.
This is the job they were talking about with High earlier, where they're like, farmers go in to cash in their stimulus checks or something. They're farmers. I don't remember. I don't really understand the concept because I'm not a farmer and I'm not a person that like has to go to the bank anymore ever. So
yeah,
it would be like robbing a bank on the day that people are cashing in their fucking paychecks, I guess. Right?
Yeah. Like there's subsidy checks that they're cashing out. So it'd be a day that the bank would have the most cash on hand, but it's also like the most Western saloon looking bank.
Yeah. It looks like a bank from an old Western movie, or like if you're in Red Dead and you go to like a larger settlement and there's like a bank in there.
They're even dressed like traditional bank robbers. They've got those long coats on.
This whole sequence is just a scene from a Western, but it's like laugh after laugh after laugh for me. Like I was just like, this is so funny. Like everything about it's very possible that they thought of this scene separately from the movie, and they're like, we have to put this into something at some point, and they're like, let's do it here because it is such a well crafted funny moment that it could exist in any movie, really, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be in this. But
yeah, you can almost imagine like a Gene Wilder version of this, but set in like a city bank instead.
Or even again, like I said Hot Fuzz before, but you could imagine like a version of Hot Fuzz where they're playing the criminals, and this would be sort of similar, except it would be like Britishy hijinks and not like ding 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 like that. It's not that kind of humor. It's more like Big Ben humor or whatever you want to call it.
But you told us to not move. Yeah,
exactly. Are we supposed to freeze, or are we supposed to get down on the ground? We can't do both.
Listen. What you got to do?
About the freezing and get down on the ground. Then
drop down to the ground, and then once you're down there, freeze. Which I thought was a funny little thing too. It's like very bumbling. The teller is like loading money into the bag, and it's like money, ink bomb,
hold
money.
On. You're forgetting the best part. Oh my God, we're the tellers. We're on the ground too. They're behind the counter. But yeah, they're shoveling money in like it's a bulk barn or something. For those of you who don't know what a bulk barn is, it's a place where you go and it smells like every smell you've ever smelled at the same time.
Mostly dog food.
Yeah, which mostly just ends up smelling like dog food and chocolate mixed together.
Yeah.
And then they add a grenade in, but it's, like, I guess now those kind of bags are built in with that. I've never robbed a bank, so I don't know how it works, but I plan on robbing one in the future. So maybe in a future episode, I can give better descriptions about it.
I think this was played up for the lulz, but I think that you're right. I think they're just built into the bag. That's what I would imagine. More modern, but especially in this movie, I think the explosion that happens, which we'll get to in a sec, is the funniest fucking paint moment I've ever seen in a movie.
The sound is very good too. Like it has a very funny sound effect to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've really gotten into watching movies with headphones on lately, like these types where like it's all encompassing and like you can appreciate the sound design way more. And I recommend it. I always do. And this movie has extremely good sound design for, I would say, like 90% of it. All of the sound effects surrounding what's his name, Lee Harvey Oswald, or the porcupine from hell. What's his name? Hogman, the war pig. What do they call him?
Jonathan Tex Pigfield, Leopold Jonathan. Nope.
Leonard Small. Leonard.
He had like a nickname too that was like Lenny or like Lenny, not Lenny, but like
Tex.
Lenny.
I mean, the actor's real name.
No, I mean,
Tex.
in
the
movie
movie
of the film, when he meets up with Arizona for the first time, or he's like skulking around their estate, they call him like Lenny or something.
Yeah.
Hi and Ed catch up to this scene. The baby was forgotten again. There's an explosion in the distance. The bounty hunter shows up. You see him too, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Because up to this point, Hi thinks that the bounty hunter exists only in his dreams.
Yeah.
And he's never seen the bounty hunter up to this point either.
Mm-hmm.
No, of course not. He blows up their car, and now he's actively trying to murder him. And the score during this segment where Hi and Edwina are like first seeing and battling the bounty hunter is so weird. Like it's such a weird little. I don't even. It's not like a traditional Western. It's just like a weird like bling 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 bling. You want me to do it again?
No, I mean maybe try and like.
Now we got two of them.
We need a clean recording of that so we can play that. I love it though. This whole fight. Actually, so there is one shot in this movie that I usually am pretty good at being like, this is how they did that. I know how they did that. Oh, I figured out how they did that. But there's one in this that I'm like, whoa, wonder how they did that. Like, my brain can't immediately figure out how they did that gag. And I think I understand how they did it, but I'm not sure. And I didn't look it up because I want to ask you guys and speculate a little bit. So there's like, I don't know how much we want to go through the fight, but it is like a big fight. He throws a grenade in their car after shotgunning both windshields out and doing crazy like I was.
That's like not a shotgun. Also, whatever the fuck blew out the front of that car windshield, like decimated the windshield like an explosion. I don't know what. I don't know what does that, but maybe double barrel shotguns can fucking just completely do that. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, it depends on what ammunition you're using, I guess, because like buckshot,
like explosive rounds,
and like salt shot, and there's like different spreads you can use, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never shot a shotgun, but I've played lots of video games where it's like, what kind of ammo you need, partner?
Well, if Turok taught me anything, but yeah, go on. About the shot you're thinking of.
So there's a shot where he knocks him off the bike with like a 2x4 or something, right? Like, and it's pretty.
Yeah.
And then he's holding it, and he is running backwards, and he's like, "Edwina, get the hell out of here with the baby!" And she does, and then he's like, and throws a knife, and he brings it into frame, and it looks like the knife comes through the board. And he's like, "Oh!" And he looks at it, and I'm like, that legitimately looks like he threw a knife and it hit the
Nicolas
board.
Cage.
Yeah, and it's like, did they hire like a magician? Like those magicians.
Shot in reverse, buddy.
You think it's shot in reverse?
That's impossible.
I know that's a joke, but maybe like it was shot like in like super slow and they sped it up. or something.
Well, another thing.
Throw a knife super slow. All right, throw it slower next time.
I would have to re-examine it, but one thing is possibly there was just hidden from camera view on the other side of the board, just mechanically something to push it through.
That's what I was thinking too. Like there's like a spring-loaded thing to make it like poke out or something, right?
Yeah, and you just need to see the motion of what's his name throwing it and Nicolas Cage moving it, and that would fill in the gap for the audience.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he pulled it into frame and the knife was already in it.
Yeah,
it looks like he pulls it empty and it pops through, and it is Nicolas Cage holding it, and it is the guy who's doing that. But like, you know, we don't know. I don't know if he's actually throwing anything, and it was already in the board, and it had like a little just a little piece that flipped out.
Possibly, yeah.
If that's the case, it looks fucking good. Because you're so used to that kind of shit now, where it's like your brain doesn't have to think about it because you know it's most likely CGI or it's whatever, right? Like you're just like, no one's ever really in danger on set anymore. But in this, it looked like he threw a knife, and Nicolas Cage caught it in a board right near his face, and I was thoroughly impressed with the you know, the achieved shot of that, because the effect was real. It did kind of, however, for the next like 3 minutes, I was thinking about it a little too hard. I was like, how the fuck did they do that? That looks too good. And I was like, did they reverse it? No,
yeah. Did they send a computer from the future to do this for us?
Was that board and knife approved by the Dental Association of America?
Now that is a curious observation you have, but you kind of touch on something else, and not to go too far into it, but that's one thing that's a part of the charm of this movie, that it's something that it doesn't have an incredibly huge budget. It's very, very streamlined and focused, but still achieves all these things. And even in the action sequences, where even at that time, like, you know, I always remember that like Terminator 1 had a budget of $14 million in 1984 dollars, which is something like 40-50 million now, and how much they achieved with that. And then you look at now where some movies where they have CGI and what they managed to achieve at it, it feels very lifeless. As you say, it is safe, but it's also like there is this removed level to it that, you know, that this doesn't feel dynamic in front of them happening.
Yeah. But it also makes a small effect like that go from something that would otherwise be nothing to something that is like truly impressive, where I'm like, oh wow, how did they achieve that? I don't know. And I have to speculate on how they did it, but
like with the amount of time, a
little bit more rich, you know, to me. And like, you know, like even just shot preservation, like this kind of stuff. That is like a comic book cover, you know, like they're taking their time to add that level of iconography, because I can show that picture to a lot of people and they probably won't know what it is. But you know, that picture could also probably be part of like a trivia challenge, or be like, what movie is this? And a lot of people would know. And it's a stunning image, you know, like a lot of the images in this are. It goes to show, because I think I was reading a little bit about it today, and you know, it goes back to what we were talking about, how they didn't want Nicolas Cage to improvise too much, and they didn't want to like give them that wiggle room. They wanted them to stick to the script. But I think that this movie was also extremely heavily storyboarded, and you can tell, because everything is so stylized in terms of the shot composition, that you're like, oh yeah, they spent a lot of time thinking about how this shot is going to connect to this shot, and the editing procedures that go on after it, right? It doesn't mean that everything was 100% accurate to how they sketched it at the beginning to how it ended up on film, but like they thought about this stuff, you know, like they didn't just be like, all right, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
That's more of like a Spielberg thing, you know. Spielberg is more about like feelings and emotion, and like, what are the characters doing, and what is the dialogue? And like, sure, Spielberg can achieve really great shots, but he's more about like the emotion and the music paired with the visuals and like everything that matters. Whereas the Coen Brothers movies are almost always like impeccably filmed. Like everything about them, like their shots are, you know, like the saying, like every shot a painting or whatever, like every single frame looks like it could be a still image that you would put on your wall as a poster.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good example, like people would probably put that on their wall as a poster.
Well, it almost employs that Kubrick sense of vanishing points, like right away, not just like with the sense of the guns, but like how there is that almost triangle of him standing in the center of the shot as well.
Even the image that you're using for your background there is like, that's also like a beautifully, like it's goofy and funny. And like the context of it is meant to be sort of like literally like he looks like he's melting, right? Like everything about him is
well, the hair is all low,
and hair is low, even his
shoulders are low.
It looks like they combed his chest hair inward and downward, like and everything about it.
Here I thought I was the only one who did that, but
every day Tim is picking the old chest hair out of his chest hair comb, and it's like
a horse hair brush.
I count to 100 for each stroke. But anyway,
like the Princess Diaries.
But anyway, and the idea, like you think back and this, really this isn't all that long ago, but you think back to 1980s filmmaking where it is shot on film. They only have so much time to do this and a limited budget. So like, that idea, you have somebody like Nicolas Cage that does have that almost improvisational energy to himself, where he's got ideas in the moment that he wants to try out. But no, we've already thought about this. Like the map is already drawn. We're just asking you to kind of walk through it. And we've already set the guidelines for this. And also, time is money. We're running out and we got to film this now while the weather is nice.
Yeah. Before tornado season starts.
It takes the set all the way forever. Like what happened. Because that's what ended up happening with like the Star Wars set for episode 1. Yeah. But anyway, but no, all that's like a very good point of that crafting ahead of time, whereas Spielberg would have all of the post-production to inform that emotion in the scene. Both are equally as emotional, but it's almost like one coming in from the past more headstrong, whereas Spielberg's an afterthought.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with either, right? Like, that's not criticism in any way, because I think obviously Spielberg is one of the greatest filmmakers who ever lived. But I think that the Coen brothers also can kind of walk down that same path and say, like, like maybe he's over there, but we're on the path. We're just like a different little walkway, We're navigating it a little bit differently than he is.
Yeah, not better or worse, but just different.
Yeah.
Who would win in a fight, H.I. McDonough or Peter Lowe from Vampire's Kiss?
True, yeah. Who would win in a fight, H.P. Lovecraft or?
But I think that the vampire is Peter Lowe.
Well, I would say I'm in favor of High only because I think fate would choose him in an almost David Lynch kind of way of good versus evil. Fate is chosen that this person who is trying to champion for something good would win.
Yeah, I do kind of like the dividing lines in this movie though as well, because there are some where like you understand where good and bad exist in this movie, but it also kind of gives you the guidelines of like, we understand what good and bad are in real life, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the characters in this movie, right? Like in our lives, good and bad is like a good person doesn't go to jail, a bad person does. In this movie, you see both. You see that bad people go to jail, but you also see that good people go to jail. And they're all doing bad things, and that's why they're in jail, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're good or bad. And even the people that you can brand as bad sometimes may be good. Like John Goodman's character, for example. He's manipulative, he's narcissistic, and he's kind of a bad guy, but there's good in him. You understand that there's good in him, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And that good may be completely latched to his brother, who seems to be more good than him, right? Like,
in a way, they're kind of two halves of one character.
Yeah. But then you have Nicolas Cage, who is primally good. Like he is good at his core, but he has these bad urges. And then you have what's his name? Pig boy from hell. Dirt Wheels. What's his name?
Give me the baby, you warthog from hell.
Exhaust Man. Is his name?
I'm still stuck on Gumbo.
Really? Yeah. His name's
Leonard Smalls.
Leonard Smalls.
There we go. Yeah.
It's not Lee Harvey Oswald.
Who wears like skulls all over his body and baby shoes, and he tells the father of the kidnapped baby that he can get more money on the black market for a baby than he's offering. Yeah, which is also very funny, where he's like, I can sell the baby for 30 grand on the black market. And he's like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to blackmail me for more money? He's like, no, I'm just telling you how it is. And, well, I think maybe you stole the baby. I didn't, but I will. And I'm going to sell it for $100,000.
That lends into my theory about, the baby being this.
Your what?
My theory? My theories that the baby is almost like this pinnacle of good, and Mr. Smalls is the evil. That they are the polar opposites on that spectrum, and all these other characters are being tugged in a way along through it. And whenever they see the baby, that's when the good side's tugging them to the other way. And for him to talk about I could just sell the baby on the black market is just bonkers crazy. And in the cartoony context of this movie, he is the cartoonish mustache twirling villain in that sense. That it's just over the top evil.
I wonder if there was ever a version of this story where even when he finds the baby, there's like a crack.
Yeah,
because
he flinches for a second while he looks it up and down. Yeah,
because there is.
I want this baby now.
And we've seen in Nicolas Cage's premonitions of him that he throws grenades at rabbits and shoots lizards to death with shotguns, and then flowers just burst into flames as he passes by. But in this fight sequence, we also see that he gets shot in the hand at one point, and his hand has fire that comes out of it. Which is when you're like, oh, this is maybe actually supposed to be a manifestation of some sort of evil. But also, you don't know what Nicolas Cage's brain is doing at this point. That could just be him hallucinating, right? Like, who knows?
Too many knocks in the head at this point. Yeah.
But I do love it, because that can't be real. But in the context of the storytelling, the campfire, we're all around a campfire telling this tale about a stolen baby. That could absolutely be the case. But it would have been nice to see it. But I feel like maybe they needed to not have it. Like him pick up the carrier and look at the baby, and then he smiles so hard his cigar falls out of his mouth or something, and he's like he's never smiled in his whole life.
His smile catches on fire.
But
I really like what Jesse Smith
the way it is as well. But
saying here, I feel like Raising Arizona is a story that's an acceptable amount of scumbaggery. He goes on to say, "There's trashy people across the board wherever you go, but as scummy as high is." In some way, there's always someone worse, someone you can compare yourself to and say, well, I'm shitty, but at least I'm not as shitty as that guy. And I think
when he finds himself contrasting against his boss and he makes that deplorable request and realizes that, no, I can't, I'm not as good as this person, and finds himself in conflict.
That is such a good observation of life as well, though. That's not even just a good observation of this movie, that's a good observation of life. You can always compare yourselves to people, and a lot of people do, and I know people who will look at the ages of successful people around them and be like, I still got time. You're not a millionaire yet, but there's there's a millionaire who made it to being a millionaire, and they're 3 years older than you. They're still all right, I can still be successful. But a lot of people probably go through life up until the point that they're 80, and they're like, I never did it. Zac Efron, you son of a bitch!
You Shrek look, you real man Shrek looking motherfucker. I'm gonna push the story ahead a little bit here. Holly Hunter is so great. She gives the line, "Give me that baby, warthog from hell." She bounces with Junior. High stops the bounty hunter. They fight. Bounty hunter kicks his ass pretty good. Bear hugs him to death nearly. They see that they have the same tattoo, or he sees that they have the same tattoo, but that's not brought up. I thought we were gonna get a Batman versus Superman. Wait, what name did you just say? Martha?
Your mom's name Woodpecker?
Yeah, we don't.
I thought they were both gonna go.
But after the bear hug, he throws high. Throws high off. He looks down. He's holding a pin from the grenade. As they're like fighting, you see him like grabbing at the grenades that are on the bounty hunter's chest. He grabs the grenade, and we get a fucking amazing man exploding. A man explodes. So I want to tally some things up for you, specifically to you, Steve. This movie has multiple chases and multiple explosions. Therefore, this is a movie and not a film. You're fucking Jason, aren't you?
So you're saying it's a movie and not a film in the sense of like artistic level?
So, Tim, you've been on this show 9,000 times.
If there's an explosion or a car chase, that's what he does.
And if a movie has if a film has an explosion and a car chase, that's how you differentiate the difference between a movie and a film. That's it. See the Home Alone of it all. Steve's fine with that. He likes that idea. But every time I bring this up, he's like, fart sound effect, bombastic. Yep, thank you once again.
As much echo as possible.
A reverberation makes the world go round. That's the thing I've been saying for as long as this show has been going, for 160 episodes. I rarely bring it up now, but right in my face, there's multiple explosions and multiple car chases. Yep.
We all know that Jason gets boners when people fart in his face. But he just said right in my face.
Sorry. Oh, gosh. Okay.
Can you give me another boner alert? Alert?
Wait, hold on. I just realized that it sounds like this.
Can you give me another boner alert, though, please? I'm gonna do it.
Not that again. Oh, Zed, will you ever leave me alone?
Zed. Will this app make air? I'm sorry, make air? Don't mind if I do.
Listen. They return. Okay, let me set the scene. So he blows up the bounty hunter.
Folks, for already 3 hours
It's true.
of this podcast.
Hi and Ed decide to return Nathan Jr. to his family, realizing they need to earn their right to the child. Fun fact. The final act was inspired by the Coen Brothers' own reflections on family and responsibility. Who knows if that's true? Who could possibly know? They claim they saved the baby from the bounty hunter. I thought they were going to get their $25,000 reward, but they don't. They admit everything. Arizona gives them. Arizona's basically like, "Well, I'll give you the money. I'll give you store credit, I guess." And they're like, "No, we don't want any money. We just want to look at your baby one more time." And he gives them some advice that's like, "Just keep trying." They're basically like, "No, that's not going to work for us." And Arizona High is like, "We're probably going to break up over this." And he's like, "I suggest you sleep on it."
He gives them a
To
little bit more
which-
advice than that, but yeah, like it's
Yeah.
that's the long and short.
I'm
of it. Like,
paraphrasing. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful scene. Like this whole.
It's a great scene. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, when the baby is returned to him, he like actually contrasts how he's been before, where he's been very. That's very good.
Yeah. Can I get a fart sound effect, please?
Nope. Shit.
Can I get a fart sound effect, please?
That Samuel Clemens knows how to get it going.
Oh my goodness.
But so when Nathan Sr. gets Nathan Jr. back, he shows like a lighter, more positive side to himself, and that's where he starts to give his sage wisdom of, you know what, give it a beat, don't make a rash decision just because of all this, you know, and now also finds a way to kind of forgive them for kidnapping his baby for this whole time.
Almost instantly too, which is, I think it shows, like, this character, we don't know a lot about him, but he's always kind of been the smartest in the room. Like, even when he's all twisted up about his child missing, like, we don't get a lot of him throughout the movie, but we get enough to kind of understand who he is.
Yeah, he's not a fool like the rest of the cast or
Yeah.
the characters. Like when
Like
the FBI are there, he's like telling them, get your shoes off there. He's constantly on top of them.
He's cleaning up after them and stuff. Like, he's like, what do you mean? You guys know there's microbes everywhere, DNA you can find, lead you to where he is or whatever.
Which is a good point. Yeah, considering that Nicolas Cage touches everything in the baby's room.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually a very sweet moment at the end.
Yeah. And he comes in and he immediately is like, what the hell is going on in here? Also showing that he's, he still cares about his kids, like he went through the same thing that they were going through, which is like they had a trouble getting children to, be created or whatever. And they had to go through drugs, or they don't really go into it, but like the implication is that they went through a bunch of trial drugs to get a baby, which is often how these wild births happen, right? Like when somebody gives birth to 10 babies, it's not naturally, it's because a doctor was like, I'll give you several different cocktails of things that will make you more fertile. I assume it's a German doctor from Mars, right?
A German doctor from Mars, not a Martian doctor from Germany. Okay.
Yeah. And you should have one baby within 14 months. And then you end up with 12 babies and you're like, oh, God. Well, I told you you'd have one. I didn't necessarily mean only one.
That's the doctor.
So, he gets it. And it makes me feel like better about that specific character who seemed kind of shitty, but he's, we haven't really been given a reason to think he's shitty, because the only thing is that he doesn't know which child was stolen. But we've already covered the fact that he just had 5 babies and he's like, I don't know, this one's Larry, Barry, Terry, and Gary, and this one's Nathan Jr.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like he finds his empathy in that moment,
while holding a gun too. Like he goes into the bedroom of his children every night to check on them, holding a giant gun.
Pushes the door open with the gun.
Yeah. What the hell's going on in here?
Good night, you princes of New England.
But yeah, he gives them good advice, and he's also not, like, again, he's maybe the smartest character in the movie, because he immediately realizes, like, are you with that bounty hunter? And they're like, no. What bounty hunter? The guy who stole my baby, or maybe stole my baby. And they're like, no, we actually killed that guy. We blew him up with a grenade, and we're returning your baby. And he's like, well, I got a reward for you. And they're like, we don't want a reward. And he's like, you guys stole the baby. Like, I get it. Why did you do it? And they don't even like kind of beat around the bush. Like, we can't have one. Which I really like, because I hate in movies when characters are hiding things from each other and the audience knows and you're just uncomfortable, where you're like, just say it, and they do, and I'm like, oh,
I do really like the fact that nothing is really left to the imagination about this element because of him, Arizona being like, well, you guys just keep trying. And it's like, no, that's not the problem here. Like, there's no
But then he
there's
also
no
gives
eggs.
but he also gives the alternative piece of advice, which is like, well, even if you can't have children, you still have each other. Like you still love each other. Don't
Sleep
you?
on it.
Yeah. And they do
when
love each other because there's never a point where they say they don't love each other. That's another thing. Is
and I believe this love. At first, at the beginning of the movie, I feel like it's a little thrown together, but I see that like they are like the same
that's
person.
the point, right? Is like we're rushed into it. It's supposed to take place over the course of like 3 years, but it's shoved into 11 minutes, right? So like we don't get to see everything that established this love, but we're meant to believe that it exists. And I do, because there's no moment where they're ever not feeling like a partnership except when he robs the bank. And except when he cannot commit during that photograph. Those are the things that make you feel like, oh, this is like what a shitty guy who thinks he knows what he wants, but like he actually just wants the photograph. Like he just wants the picture of the happy family. He hasn't thought about what it means to be a happy family. He just wants to be able to show somebody a picture of a happy family that he's in, to be able to, say, look, this is me and my happy family. But creating the happy family is something that he hasn't actually considered yet. Which is like, I'm actually having a little bit of a small panic attack in my heart right now. Cause I'm like, that is like, I understand that. Like, I get it. I understand that want and that need and that like desire, but like, you're also like, but I don't want that though. Like, I don't want to have to fake a life to be able to have a photograph,
Yeah.
Well, let me outline the ending then. Hai has a dream in which he envisions a better life where he and Ed are happy, hinting they may someday earn a family of their own. I also wrote, he has a dream of the crime boys went back to jail on their own. They walk back to the mud. They climb back in
into their hole. And
go
they're still
down
covered
in the
in
mud.
blue paint. Yeah.
Yeah. We get the Christmas bit. Nathan Jr. gets a football in the future. He's like, I have a dream about the future, a near future. He imagines Nathan Jr. being a football star. We get that scene that you were talking about earlier, Steve, where Glenn still sucks. He's like, he made too many jokes about ethics that cause him to have the police be like no longer letting him get out of his stories.
He says, like, maybe he told him too many jokes about Polish people and it really fucked him over. And then it zooms in on like the officer's badge. It's a Kowalski or something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Kowalski. Yeah.
So funny.
Then we get the far future of Nathan in the future, who, he ends up. I can't remember what happens there, but
he's winning like a football game or some shit. And he's got like an angelic jersey that's white and gold lettering or whatever. Just like, oh god, this is what a dumb boy wants for their son, is to become a football star,
a footballer. And then Ed and Hai in the extreme future where they have a giant family. And I wrote, I don't know, wishful thinking. And I think that's the end of my notes.
But I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier, which is like, if he can manifest a demon from hell to come and hunt him down for stealing a baby, then maybe he's manifesting all of this as well, and has that in his potential. Which, again, happy ending, which is what the movie needs. Like this movie cannot end on like a dour ending. It has to have at least some sort of like glimmer of hope, and it does.
Yeah, I had that whole thing where, like I was telling you before, like I thought when he walked into the room with Arizona, it was going to be like, you can just have this baby, or like,
which one you want? You want Gary? You want Larry? These two suck, but Harry's okay.
But ultimately, the end message is with Hai's hopeful vision of the future. The film ends on a poignant note, contrasting with the absurdity of the previous events. And I think that's very much it. What do you guys think happens to Hai and Ed after this? Because I think the whole crux of the film isn't that like she had a baby really fast, right? Because there's even that scene where Francis McDermott's like, how'd you get the baby so fast? You're supposed to be on a long waiting list. And I think Glenn says some racist shit about like eating a Chinese baby. But do you think they end up
Here's what I think. This is what I think happens.
Adopting, or
here's what I think happens. Nathan, Arizona is the most famous, the most powerful man in all of wherever the fuck they are. He sends a message to Hi and says, I looked into it and I realized, man, oh man, the only reason that you can't adopt is because of your criminal record. Well, I've had that expunged, my friend, because I'm running for Congress. And I am going to make sure that people like you have a clean record so that if you need and want a baby, you can have one. And I'll make sure that good men like you are able to raise people like Nathan Jr. to be the men that they should be. And then he has all of his criminal record removed. And then him and Ed are able to adopt a baby. And then they adopt one. And then they adopt two. And then they adopt three. And that's all they get is three, because that's all they want. And then those three end up having children of their own, grandchildren, and then great-grandchildren. And then that vision at the end comes true. And it's because he gave the baby back that all of this happens.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I kind of see it as in very vague terms that like whether naturally, whether through adoption, or whether through in a sense of like found family, which is the case for a lot of people these days anyway, that they just worked at building a happy life and building a happy family through that, through just being grounded after all that, that they've kind of experienced the worst and now they can go and build the best.
Yeah, that's good too.
I like that as well.
yeah, I guess that's okay.
That feels more like a realistic idea. You know?
Oh yeah. I mean,
not a storybook. You need to incorporate the unpainted king of.
He's got something to do with all this. There's something going on there.
He has to have a spoon in the soup.
So that's the end of the film Raising Arizona. I think we covered every single possible element.
Oh yes.
That we could probably talk about
you didn't
for
say
a
how
movie.
you think it happens, Jason?
Oh, you know what? You know what happened? A moon baby came down from the future, and from his dreams, and everything in the dream happened. She gets pregnant, pure conception from a biblical source, and ends up having a first baby who has a second baby. Meanwhile, they meet some new family, and that family has a family, and they all have families together. That end scene with the table. Yeah, they're inbred. Nope. Yeah, I said it.
I was trying to say inbred?
No. I thought it was great that their family had a meal on their table, and it was really nice to see them.
You're underwater. You're underwater.
Am I still underwater?
A little bit.
Am I still underwater?
Not anymore. You're in the shower.
So they have a nice Thanksgiving, and they say, "My, what a lovely tea party," and that's the end of the movie. I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So really, what we have to ask now is that
I think that was a real turkey because it was really small. If it was a fake turkey, it would have been way bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
Just like in Home Alone,
they had like a conservative, like they realize how many people are coming and how much they need to serve, and that was the size of the turkey. They're like, this is the perfect amount of turkey for the people that are here. They didn't. I think these wild ass huge turkeys where they're like, now we got 14 days worth of turkey sandwiches and turkey stew.
I think everybody in this movie voted for Donald Trump. So that's my theory.
Well, yeah, they're all poor idiots.
That's my theory. That's my theory.
Almost certainly the racist did.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
The guy who's still making Polish jokes to this day. He's like 90, and he's like, "You ever heard the one about the Polak and the gas station?"
But I think at this point in time, it's time for Home Alone of it all.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick one,
what do you think the Home
Alone
of it
is
all?
the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone
I
of it
really
all?
gotta know.
When is the Home Alone of
What
it all?
is the Home Alone of it all? Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
Should we
Merry
make a Home
Christmas.
Alone of it all? Yeah, I mean, we're almost there. Should we make a Home Alone of it all T-shirt? I think we could.
Yeah, I think so. I think
It's
that I
just
would
like
love
a
that.
And then on the back is the complete
Hello.
long form explanation of what it
what it
is.
is. Yeah.
Now, typically, I have to explain it. Tim, you've been here 77,000 times. I don't have to explain it, but just for the benefit of the home listener, the idea of the Home Alone of it
The
all
homeless? What do you say?
the Home Alone of it all is the idea that in the movie Home Alone, Kevin McAllister slaps the blueprint down on the table. You see all the intricate traps he's created for Harry and Mark.
Oh my god.
That's for our podcast. That's for our audio only listeners. And during that blueprint, you see that he's going to murder these men. In the Home Alone segment, we sort of have posited at this point that basically in any movie, there's your favorite part that can be surmised by just that, the Home Alone of it all. You know what it is.
Mhm.
And you don't hand this when the guest always goes first. So, Tim, I don't need to explain further. Thank you, Spider-Man. Why don't you stop that train, you bastard?
That's all I hear now. But anyway, I would say as soon as you get to right before you see the Raising Arizona title in the movie, and that at the end of that beginning sequence, it points out like these are the stakes, these are the characters, and now we're setting forth. And I would say like that part is when you know like it's ramping up from here. And and everything along that leading up to that point would be what you would see in the trailer, and then they would say, and you wouldn't believe what happens next, and you would see all the chasing and the explosions and all that kind of stuff. But it when they finally announce what the caper is, that they're kidnapping a baby, and you can't believe what's going to happen next. That part is my Home Alone of it all.
And that is like truth. Like as you say, like, and you won't believe what happens next is actually truth for the rest of the movie, because you won't. It's a very hard movie to pin down what's gonna happen next. You don't know, and sometimes when I watch a movie, like it is kind of mind-boggling to think about that this is so meticulously geared together, where they had a very clear roadmap to believe that, because it's like it feels so unhinged. But it's so clean that you're like, they must have, because it can't flow this well if they didn't. But it does feel like they didn't. It feels like they're like, what are we gonna do next? I don't know, like a Scooby-Doo style chase scene that lasts for maybe 11 minutes long.
Yeah, but like never at all do any of the characters feel unnatural. Their established element remains consistent the whole time. Even though they go through their character arcs, but it doesn't go out of that boundary, out of that back bracket of who they are.
Yeah, every character is like crafted from. I was almost going to say stone, but maybe not stone. Like maybe clay, and in some cases maybe Play-Doh. But like they are extremely well crafted.
They're all formed out of hash.
They're formed out of hash. But like you kind of understand them in the sense that like you might not know what they're going to do next, but everything that they do next makes complete sense for their specific characters, and it's so good. And I think that's maybe one of the best strengths about Coen Brother movies is that there's no character that is just there to be there. They even the guy who like the old man who's like, unless you consider round an interesting shape, like that character is like feels well thought about. Like
this character exists in this world.
He's not forgotten about as he goes down. He comes up and then he doesn't do anything unexpected, but he does something which is funny, which is go back down, and then you hear him. He's still in the background the whole time, but he's there.
What's
my
your
Home Alone,
all, Steve?
I know I was getting to it. My Home Alone of it all is my Home Alone of it all is that I almost don't have one because the first act of this movie is condensed into 11 minutes, and then the movie starts, and then that's when the movie truly begins. So it's almost like the movie's beginning is the Home Alone of it all. But I'll say that the Home Alone of it all is when he throws down the manual and says, "Here's the manual," because they never once look really in that book again. Like they do, but there's not like moments where they're like flipping through it and they're like discussing it or as if it's an actual manual. You know, like there's too much other stuff happening in their life that is getting in the way of them being able to sit down and read the manual. And that feels real to me because I can imagine having a child and being like, I've read all of these books and I'm prepared. And then you're not prepared for anything because it's going to be different. I've never worked with infants before, but I have worked with children, and it's really hard because like you have to kind of like bring your mind into a different level that,
to relate to them. Yeah.
To relate to them. But then also at the same time, they're just like people where all of them have different levels and different ways that you can interact with them successfully. And a lot of the time you're going to try, but like, it's not going to work. And you have to work with that. And sometimes, the job that I was doing, sometimes you'd only be with them for a week. So you figure them out by Friday, and then they're gone. And you never see them. You're like, oh, I think I cracked the code by Thursday afternoon. But, and then Friday was a great day, but then they were gone forever, so I'll never know. So, yeah, I think that is – it's also, like, right when they steal the baby, which is when everything kind of, like, starts to ramp up. So, yeah, that's the Home Alone of it all for me.
My Home Alone of it all is when the bounty hunter appears in Hyde's dream. I think the bounty hunter is sort of the ultimate antagonist in this film. And up to that point, it's basically like a first act setup, and then it moves forward into a post bounty hunter era. And I think that like just very succinctly, I want to say it's the bounty hunter showing up. The shenanigans start happening.
I'm the dog, the big bad dog, the bounty hunter.
Yep, we all remember it.
I actually blanked at first what you were singing, then okay, that.
Remember the Bounty Hunter show with Dog the Bounty Hunter?
Yeah, Dog the Bounty Hunter.
All right, brother, you're going to spend 2 days behind a hotel room with no window.
Get on the floor, Icehead. That's what I remember from Dog the Bounty Hunter. Hey, do you want to play the hit game Sweeping the Nation?
Ooh.
Oh, what's that game called?
The MPAA.
The MP. Oh.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Robert Bounty Hunter, and I am here from the future to tell you all about the hit game that everybody's playing, but I'm not going to tell you about it. Steven Jr. is going to tell you all about the rules.
Hey, y'all, it's me, Steven Jr., named after my father, Nathan, and his grandfather, H.I., and his grandmother, Ed, and her grandfather, Gail. And as you all know, the MPAA game is all about guessing the MPAA number that is delegated to a movie after it has been watched by a series of stringent perverts to make sure that the movie is okay for viewers. And what we have to do now is guess that number. But me and you, Tim, we only need to guess the last 3 numbers of a 5-digit number. Jason is going to give us the first 2 digits of a 5-digit number, and we just need to guess the last 3. The last 3 means a number between 000 and 999. So all we need to do is guess a number between 000 and 999.
Thank you, Steve. Tim, you are the number one lover of this game. You're a real MPAA lover. And as it is written, the guest always goes first in our show. So why don't you give us your first guess? The first 2 digits this week are 28.
Well, Steve, this is my game today because I've been thinking about numbers all day.
God, you twisted pervert. You should have been on the MPA board that gave it its rating. You sick, twisted fuck.
Jesus.
I'll start with 500.
Steve, it's lower than that.
Well, ooh la la. 500 lower. I'm going to say 300.
Tim, it's higher than that.
The game's afoot. 406.
Great guess. Steve, it's higher than that.
It's in between 406 and 500. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what
That's
you're telling
right.
me right now?
That's what
And
I'm
you
telling
said
you. That's
great
what I'm
guess, which means it's probably closer to the lower number, the one that Tim just said, because I am Sherschlock Shlomes from Arizona. So I'm going to go ahead and say 420.
For 20, man. Tim, it is higher than 420.
462.
Steve is higher.
Higher? Wait, can you guys see me? You know that that stand-up comedian who's gay that has like a thick mustache?
Oh, yeah.
This is my impression of him.
That's actually really good.
Wait, how do I do it again?
Like as he's giving dating advice and people mention, oh yeah, I'm dating a turtle. A turtle?
So I'm dating an Italian. I'm gay. I'm allowed to do it. Okay, so wait, what was it? It was
462.
Higher than
Yeah.
462.
But lower than 500.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a 470. Three.
Good golly. Oh my goodness. Look, right here on the show, the MPAA rating game, we have a new segment we'd like to allow you all to do. I'm going to ask you what the box office amount is, and you'll each get a new vote if you can get the number without going over. I'll tell you this week that it is higher than 10 million, lower than 30 million for the box office, just to keep it within the realm. If either of you can get it higher without going over, you get an additional vote / guess. Tim, what would you like to say for your box office guess?
Well, first, I love the addition of another chance to guess a number is that you have to guess a number. But okay, box office. This is the money it made.
This is Price is Right rules, though. It's different.
Price rules.
Yeah. So if you go over, I'm gonna guess $1 and I'll win.
Okay, so this is the money it made. Because I know what the budget was, but the money it made. Because the one thing I do know about this is that they said this is the one movie that they actually did make a real profit off of, considering how much it cost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say 24 million.
Okay, and Steve, higher than that, but that doesn't matter as long as you don't go over. You'll also get a guess.
All right, I'm gonna try and guess realistically because if I just say 24 million and $1, then that means I win. But is it like much higher than that? Fine. This is the part that annoys me because I could just win easily. Like, I'm 24.
You don't win. This is just you to get another
Right.
guess. It's
Right.
not a versus.
All right, I'll say 28 million.
Okay, it's both of you get an additional guess. So the last guess was 473, 28473. Tim, what's your final guess? for the MPAA?
484.
Well, I will tell you that I did say lower than 473. So
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Lower than 473.
It's between 462 and 473.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. 468.
Good guess, but no. Steve, your final guess?
Is it higher or lower?
Oh, sorry, it's higher. It's higher.
You said 68?
It's between 468 and 473.
470. You forgot to turn the music up.
Did I?
Yeah. So did I win?
You got it right. It's
Yes.
Okay.
472. You also.
There we go.
You also guessed 428, 473. I indicated with my facial expressions that it could be close, but I really thought that was a great game, and that's the MPAA rating game for this week.
And that is the last time that we will ever.
It's
The
not.
MPAA, everyone.
Played forever.
The MPAA.
I love numbers.
Wow.
Wow. But what I will say is in 2025, we are eliminating the MPAA rating game. I'm sorry, Tim, but every time that you come back on the show,
We'll play.
we will be playing the
Okay.
MPAA rating
We'll
game.
keep everything around for you.
Yes. You are the proprietor
But
of
we're
it.
thinking of a new game, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ooh.
True. We
That's
got things
interesting.
in the bag. We got things in the bag for season 4.
It's called Save My Girlfriend.
And with that, let's go on to our final thoughts.
It's time for our final thoughts.
Just like with everything else on this show, the guest always goes first. So, Tim, why don't you give us your final thoughts? And if you have a rating that you would like to give it, whether it be out of 5 stars, out of 10 gourds, maybe it's a nonsense rating you want to give it. It's the floor is yours to give us your final thoughts.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you again for having me back. And sorry I couldn't participate with Halloween. That was actually a really fun show. And you guys are at 160, well into season 3, and looking forward to what 2025 has in store for you guys. And always very happy to be on and support any way I can. So thank you very, very much for that. But my final thoughts for Raising Arizona. At first, I admit that I was kind of not too sure, because I didn't quite remember it very well. And so it was a good opportunity to refresh that memory and see it, and also see it with a tad more maturity, to appreciate just the kind of rolling up your sleeves and make a good movie without it being a bloated mess, and seeing like early Coen Brothers with a lot of their future techniques in development, that a lot of their storytelling stuff, because there are moments where it is a tad raw in this movie, but like I think even back then, like Siskel and Ebert were raving about it. There was like mixed reviews, but it certainly got people's attention and made people realize that these directors had something to say. And as for Nicolas Cage, it's interesting to watch a movie where he's actually coloring within the lines, more or less. And it's actually an interesting example of range where he's not too subdued and not over the top, but he's still bringing in a lot of creativity and for all those people that go through that cliched argument of like whether or not he's a good actor. No, he's a great actor, and this is another great example of that. And so with that, I give you guys another little congratulations for another fun idea for a theme month. And for my rating, I got to give this 4 out of 5 babies. That's my rating.
Get the devil on your phone.
Is the missing baby Nathan Jr.? Somebody check Tim's trunk of his car.
No, it's Larry or Barry or one of those garbage babies.
Babies, yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Steve.
Give me what I want. Give me what I want.
Give me what I want, Steve. What are your final thoughts for the film Raising Arizona, starring
I have
Nicolas
a
Cage?
lot of the same sentiments, similar to the brief history, like how you feel about this. I didn't appreciate it in the way that I should have when I first watched it, which is, maybe not great because the people that made it when they made it were closer to my age when I watched it than I am now, but I feel closer to it now than I did when I was closer to their age. I don't know if that's very convoluted and weird, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I kind of miss this type of smart filmmaking because people emulate this stuff, but they can never recreate it. And even the Coen Brothers aren't really doing it anymore. But when you look at something like the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, they have the same energy, or at least the same sort of like soul of energy. Like if there was like a little ball of energy and everything around it was this movie, that little ball has moved and it keeps moving from project to project, and it's never really fizzled. It might get blocked out every once in a while by other things, but it still is there. And like I love that Buster Scruggs movie as well. I know Jason talked about it, but I didn't really give my 2 cents on it. But like it is great, and it's like a perfect representation of what they are, which is just creative and interesting. And this movie is both creative and interesting. And like to describe it to somebody would not do it justice. Even to just show clips of it would not do it justice. You have to watch it from beginning to end, and you have to embrace that it's weird. This was like my consensus at the end last night. I was like, that was such a weird movie. But the reason that I liked it so much was because it was so fucking weird. And the reason that it was so good is because it's weird. Like that is what it is. Like you can't get around it. You're not going to sit down here and be like, the movie was good because of this. No, the movie is good because it's fucking weird. And like, that's what you kind of want from this type of story. Imagine like a version of this that was, they take all the sensibilities from a different type of movie that they've made, because, the Coen Brothers have DNA. When they touch a thing, they lift their fingerprints and they're there and you can see them. But, like they also aren't going to mix and meddle with, the projects they're working on. This movie has dark elements, but they'll also make the dark elements hilarious while they're there. Whereas you watch something like No Country for Old Men, and the dark elements are there specifically to freak you the fuck out. They're not meant to be goofy or funny.
Yeah.
They're there to make you be like, oh God, my heart. And did I just piss in my own pants over here? Maybe I did. Somebody can kill you with a pneumatic pressurized air gun used to kill cows. I didn't know if someone could do that to me. But the one thing that I was talking about earlier is like this weird sort of sense of melancholy and sadness and longing that exists in this movie for everybody, not just Hi and Ed, but for the brothers, and for Nathan Arizona and his wife, and for almost every character that exists. Like the baby, like you said, Tim, is meant to pull good out of people, but it's also meant to like sort of, they look at it as a purpose. And that's not to say that like a baby is a purpose and everybody should look at a baby as a purpose. I'm just saying that in the movie, this is a beacon of purpose for a lot of people around it. And that's, like a beautiful sentiment, whether you agree with it or not. And it makes me think, as I said before, about longing that I've had in my life for a specific thing, and then got it in the palm of my hands, and I've had it, and I'm like, this is what I've wanted for so long, and then realize that it's a snowball that melts in my hands, and I'm like, oh, it's gone, and now I'm just living my life now. And it wasn't the perfect thing that I thought would change everything for me. And that's super sad. That's a super sad concept. And I think that that's kind of what the movie is a little bit about. But High, in general, by the end, is he's still building those snowballs in his mind. And like, that's his life, is looking to the next snowball, which is fine. Looking to the next snowball that will melt in your hand is fine. I know I made a sand sieve analogy earlier, and now I make a snowball analogy now, but I think they're both accurate and valid.
That makes sense.
If I had to give this a rating, I would say that this movie is the concept of holding a beautiful baby in your hands only to realize that there's a demon from hell that might turn it into a snowball that will melt between your fingers.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Give me what I want. Give me what I want.
Yeah, succinct and great thought. I forgot to mention during the MPAA at the end, I usually say what the box office and budget were. The box office was 29.2 mil. The budget was 5.5, so sequel coming anytime now. Overall, a great experience. I don't actually know how I've never seen it, which I mentioned in my brief history, which Steve mentioned. Like, it's pretty much same as before as it ends. I think it's an important movie for any fan of the Coens and comedy. You see a lot of the influence it has on comedy, especially with shows that are sitcoms with heart, which I mentioned. I think that this movie really covers a lot of ground when it comes to showing the absurd and the ridiculous, while also just having a great sense of good filmmaking and good. I think this movie is straight up good. I give it a 5 out of 5.
Wow,
Just good.
I give it a 5 out of 5. Honestly, it's so fucking good. I think that this movie is one of the best of this month that we've done. It'll be exciting to see how we experience.
I would say it is the best. I think it's the best so far, yeah.
We'll see what Valley Girl brings us next week. I have no fucking clue.
I've never seen Valley Girl, so this is one of the. This will be an interesting adventure for both of us, I guess. Yeah.
But I give this movie an ink bomb in a $100,000 bag of cash in a good way.
I don't know what that means.
5 out of 5, buddy. 5 out of 5.
Give me what I want.
Instead of
Give me what I want.
Instead of the ink coming out, it's just more money. He's like,
yeah.
Whoa, more money.
Whoa.
Crazy.
We won. We ultimately won. It's all babies.
I thought we just stole $20,000, but we actually stole $1 billion.
A billion babies.
It's clogging the engine. What do we do?
And I guess the last thing we have to do before we go, before we have that epic question is our plugs.
All right, let me just plug this in right here and
I watched 2 episodes of The Simpsons in the last week where they rehashed Frank Grimes. Frank Grimes' brother actually goes after. I know it was 1 episode. Frank Grimes' brother goes after Homer in a murder plot, and they enlist Sideshow Bob, who gets electrocuted repeatedly. He's got an electric necklace on.
This sounds like a Marvel
Like,
No,
like a crazy.
Season 14 is wild of The Simpsons. But he makes
Frank
very much.
Grimes' brother teams up with Sideshow Bob to kill
No,
Homer.
Frank Grimes' brother has a murder plot. It's a mystery episode, and it turns out it's Frank Grimes' brother who's trying to kill Homer, and they enlist Sideshow Bob to help them figure out who the killer is, and he gets electrocuted repeatedly in this episode, and it sounds exactly like that sting. Anyway,
Right.
I know that
My favorite Simpsons mystery is, well, I certainly can't figure out this mystery. Can you?
It was Baby Simpson. Tim, I know that you don't have a lot in the creator space. However, do you have a plug, or do you have do you have a plug, or do you have a message for the world? And if you want to give a special birthday shout out to anybody in the world,
Tim is going to write a book called Shaving Arizona,
where I just write my name into my chest with electric razor. No, nothing to plug, but. For a lot of folks, 2024 has been not the best. There's been a lot to wrestle with, but I always say, like, find the things that you love and love it with all your might. And the good friends, keep them around so that they're great friends. And 2025, I plan for at least myself to make a lot of good changes, and I want to share good things and good memories with folks. And I encourage as much positivity as you can put out there, because though there's a lot of work to do, the biggest part you can do is just those little good moments, as much as those you can fit in, and share those with the people that you care about the most as much as you can, and health and happiness as much as possible for everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on again. As always, you're welcome back whenever you'd like.
Thank you.
Steve, what are you cooking up, buddy?
Well, as always, I'm on the Darth Theorist channel as the narrator in every single god dang voice, which is fun. I do Anakin. I do Obi-Wan. I do Emperor Palpatine, you son of a bitch. I do all of them. I do every voice. But we've also just released a second channel. Dun 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 dun
dun dun dun dun.
The game of it's called The Three-Eyed Theorist, and we've started doing Game of Thrones what ifs. Like, what if Robert Baratheon didn't get so drunk that a boar killed him? That's the first episode, and he's like,
I watched it.
Now that I'm back, I'm gonna fuck everybody. Like, that's basically like what it is. I'll fuck you all up. I'm like, and I play Robert, and I also play Ned and all the other characters. But it's fun. It's a fun channel. I don't know if it's gonna do well, but I'm having fun doing it. So if you guys want to hear me struggle with a Yorkshire accent, which is mostly like, yeah, and do what you know about being a bastard. You don't know. It's really hard, but I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, true crime stories is, that's the other main one. But I'm all over the place, guys. I'd love if you guys would support the Star Wars channel and the Game of Thrones channel, though, because those are the ones that I really, really like doing. Like, I have fun doing it. I'm sitting here at my computer being like, how can I do better at a little finger? Sansa Stark, you sick fuck. Like, can I improve that? Maybe if I have to do 98 episodes, I'll probably get better at it. So if you guys like it.
I'll have to watch to find out who Littlefinger is.
He's the guy who's like, I used to be in love with your mother, Sansa, and now... And she's like, ugh, what the fuck? Oh, nothing. Go back to making your sand castle. There's a lot of incest, a lot of like weird.
Right on.
When we were doing this, I was like, okay, I guess I should watch the new show just in case you guys have like a script for the new show. And then I watched the new show and I was like, damn. I knew there was a lot of fucking incest in the original Game of Thrones, but this one is like right out of the gate. They're like, incest is normal and that's just how it is now. Everybody's marrying their cousins and their sisters.
Oh my god.
Here's my impression of House of the Dragon.
There's actually way less sex in House of the Dragon,
Huh.
but the implied incest is way worse. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's more like this. And why don't you have a seat? Why don't you have a seat? My name is Chris Baratheon, and I have some questions for you.
You have a seat over there. Thank
That's
you,
really
Steve.
cool.
Everybody check out House of the Dragon. Nope. Everybody check out
For my new channel,
Theorist.
how to catch a Baratheon,
How to catch a Baratheon. How to catch a Stark.
or how to catch a Lannister.
I mostly just want to let everybody
Dangle
know
some
that.
golden hair in front of his face. Sorry.
Give him the old. Give him the old fucking Iron Crown, if you know what I mean. That's a Game of Thrones reference where they pour
Iron
gold
Throne,
on your face.
not crown.
Iron. No, the you know when they put the
Iron
gold
Crown.
on the guy's head. The Iron Crown. Listen,
Golden crown.
Golden Crown. Each and every week here on YouTube and Twitch, you can find
You know
us.
when they put the iron crown on his head and they melt gold and pour it on his head? Yeah, that's an iron crown. Like, no,
That's an iron crown.
That's a golden.
It's a golden shower if you have ever
It's a
seen one.
golden- Yeah, he's like, I demand a golden shower. Where's my
got it.
golden shower? And they're like, "Utarkarat kalulshada." And they like pour molten golden lava on his head. Sorry.
Each and every single week of your life and mine. Unfortunately, you can find us right here on YouTube and Twitch, 8 p.m. Eastern. Hated to see this one goes live every Friday, the following Friday, usually. Actually, yeah, around 2 p.m. I put that fucker up on video on demand on YouTube. You can always find us in the club, in the place to be. I'd also like to tell you guys a little about our storefront. We have a storefront on TeePublic and Redbubble.
Storefront ready.
Storefront and charge. We got the Grimoire Familiar Killers t-shirt that you can get. We got the Kill Aid t-shirt you can get. We got the Twinkerbell t-shirt. And coming soon is our DOS.
Wow.
And I don't have them loaded up, but we do have a Franken Twinkerstein.
I know, but I spelled Stein wrong. I put the I and the E reversed by accident.
Well,
I have dyslexia, like a very mild case of it. And by mild, I mean like a wildfire that ran through my entire childhood. But you know, it's under control now.
And also look forward to the what the fuck was that thing? The fucking bong thoughts from my dream journal.
Yeah. So earlier in the podcast, I used to say a thing called bong thoughts from my dream journal a lot, and it was very funny. But then we lost to a dream, a bong thought, perhaps a member of the podcast. And it just was removed because that person often evoked bong thoughts from my dream journal because his thoughts were often like the stupidest shit you ever heard in your life. You're like, what,
nonsense.
Bong about from your fucking dream journal?
He quit, by the way.
Not because we were bullying him or anything.
No. He bullied himself.
I'm just
dumbass.
No,
But also,
he's fine.
no, he's great. No, he's not. Anyway, we got another thing that we're working on too that involves something that I can't remember. But also, I'd like to let everybody know that my name is Jason R. Phillips, and I'm the wrestling announcer for a company here in Toronto called Super Kicked. We have a show coming up a week from tomorrow on Friday the 28th, I believe, where I will be announcing Super Kicked and go, hey, it's our Royal Rumble, so maybe I mix it up and become part of that Royal Rumble. So come out and check us out.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, of course.
Are you done? Tim, this whole episode, I keep getting this like weird sensation like every time I look at your box that you're in. that you're in between daddy and his shaving time, and he's
Same.
about to hit you. He's about to be like, "Get out of here!"
So forced perspective.
What are you doing?
Amazing.
What are you doing? What are you doing? I'll have to pick a better picture next time, or just this one forever.
If we could green screen that one arm, like in his shoulders coming, so you're actually in between, it would be too much.
But I mean, with that, next week we're talking right here on the show. We're talking Valley Girl, starring Nic Cage. But with that, there's one question that needs to be asked each and every week that we always ask. And Tim, you have the decidedly misfortune of asking the question.
Well, only thing I can think of is, hey, did you see this one?
Oh, whoops.
Man, oh man. So, do anybody else here feel like getting together and kidnapping a baby?
I've seen babies before.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I hear
Really?
that they're worth at least 30 grand on some sort of market. I don't know which one.
Which one?
What?
I
The
don't
baby
know,
market.
How much Bitcoin you get for a baby?
I believe it's called the African American market.
All right. Hold on.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.